Welcome to Spirit Gym. What if everything you thought you knew about cannabis was only scratching the surface? What if the edible you casually take to sleep could be sending you into a full-blown psychedelic experience, or worse, a chemically engineered fog you can't shake for days? What if cannabis was more than a recreational substance? What if, used properly, it could activate specific brainwave states, support neuroplasticity, and function as a legitimate psychedelic therapy? In this episode, Paul is joined by Ryan Sprague, plant medicine educator, ceremonial guide, and creator of the Conscious Cannabis Collective, as well as the world's first legal psychedelic certification program using cannabis. Together, they dive deep into the misunderstood magic of cannabis as a true psychedelic tool for personal growth, healing, and even spiritual awakening. They explore the dirty secrets of the cannabis industry, why most edibles aren't what they seem, how cannabis can shift your brain into theta states, and how it stacks up against heavy hitters like ayahuasca and mushrooms. This isn't about getting high. This is about rewiring the mind, supporting trauma integration, and using a widely misunderstood plant for profound human potential. But before we dive in, we'd like to say thank you for listening, as this podcast would not be possible without you, our subscribers and followers. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Organifi, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley, Wild Pastures, Peak Life, and Correct. You'll hear their special offers and discounts throughout this episode, or you can visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast. And if you want to explore the deeper levels of connection and conversation available in Paul's Spirit Gym membership community, you can go to myspiritgym.com for details. So get ready to roll with us, literally or metaphorically, as Paul and Ryan uncover what cannabis can really do when used with intention.
Well, it's been a while since you and I hung out here at the old Podcast Central in my library and art studio, so we're back. You were saying when we met out in the driveway, it's been a couple of years.
2 years since I've been in California in general, especially here. I think the last time was the shamanic sound healing workshop.
Right. Yeah, I love that workshop.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
so fun.
The music we were making as a group was just great.
It was amazing. And at the end of the day, we all went down. I think we were singing this gigantic sound bowl, and you heard it from your office, came down. We were all hitting some bags. And you were like, what are you guys vibrating? It's going through the walls of my office. And you came down and we all started singing. It was me, you, Will Burnett. I think maybe Jason Ganzu was there. A couple of us that were left after the workshop. It was so fun.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, what have you been doing, with your education programs and everything else since we podcasted last? Except for the occasional text. I got so much going on. I can't keep track with everybody.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. It's funny because the last time I was on the show, I feel like I was a baby, like I was an infant. I had just started everything I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of shifts since that time. Last time I was on here, I only had one program, and that was the Connect with Cannabis program. My baby, the first thing I created. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into a 3-course series that became the Conscious Cannabis Collective. Mm-hmm. And then that birthed into now what I do, Coach with Cannabis, which is a 6-month certification program, the only legal psychedelic certification out there. And like I tell everyone, I'm not trying to play a hierarchy with plant medicine, but I'm looking to allow cannabis to rise back into the conversation where it belongs, because it is the people's plant. It's the one that you don't have to spend $10,000 to go down to a jungle and take a month off of your life to do. Mm-hmm. It's the one that you can choose non-intoxicating varieties. You can grow in your own backyard. You can do almost a panacea of different medicines from it. And so that's what that program's all about. And the other big thing I've been doing is something we call Breathe with Cannabis.
Yeah, you were just telling me about that.
Yeah, and those are our live ceremonial experiences. So when I talk about cannabis being a psychedelic, I typically get 2 types of people that call bullshit, right? The seasoned cannabis user who's like, I don't know, I've been using cannabis for years. I've never once felt anything I could call psychedelic. Or this person who's brand new to it, right? And just has never heard that cannabis can be a psychedelic.
Well, what Terrence McKenna says, if you want to find out if cannabis is a psychedelic, he says, roll yourself a Cheech and Chong sized bong, go in a closet, close the door, and smoke the whole thing. You'll have a journey.
Yeah.
But I think cannabis, if you eat it, becomes much more potent as a psychedelic.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I almost tell every one of my clients and people I work with, be very careful with ingestibles because there were a lot of things based on the endocannabinoid system, our metabolization rate in our liver of delta-9 THC, that can make it so you could eat a 10 milligram edible and I could eat a 10 milligram edible, let's say. For you could be like, this is child's play, I don't feel anything. For me, I could be feeling a lot. Same strength, different physiology. That's where it gets really challenging because if you inhale cannabis and you realize you went too far, you're typically already at the peak and then you start to come down. Edibles are a real psychological thriller in a way because the point you realize you went too far, you're only just getting started. You have about 3 hours of climbing to do.
Sorry, yeah, I'll tell you a story about that because there's an opposite side to that little story. I don't typically sleep very well on airplanes, and this is a long time ago when I was going back and forth, multiple times a year to Australia, and the flight to Sydney is like 15, almost 16 hours. And I hate that. My body hates sitting for that length of time. So I thought, somebody had given me a bunch of marijuana edibles, like candies type thing. And I thought, well, maybe this will help me sleep, So I took one right when we got on the plane, and about, 3 hours later, I wasn't feeling anything. I thought, I'll try another one. All I remember is putting the other one in my mouth. And the next thing you know, Penny is waking me up going, Paul, you got to wake up. You got to wake up. And Angie was with us on that trip too. And I woke up and I was stoned as a motherfucker. I was like high off my ass. And I remember like I had to go pee and I could barely walk. I was having to hold on to the seats. I was having to hold on to the wall to stand there and pee so I didn't fall over. Felt like the whole airplane was like, moving in multiple dimensions. It wasn't just going straight, And I said to Angie and Penny, you guys got to hold my hands because I don't even know if I can walk. I don't know. I said, these guys are going to look at me in customs and probably think I'm completely fucking out of my mind. And I was having a hard time filling out all the customs cards. I had to have Penny because I just couldn't even write. I was like, I'm a guy that's done some very deep plant medicine ceremonies, and this thing, but it was a different kind of experience. It wasn't like mushrooms or anything we typically use in a plant medicine ceremony. It was like I was turned into water. Like I was just like liquid, and like my arms and legs were made of rubber, and the floor seemed to be kind of floating around, and it was kind of scary for me because I'm like, oh my God, I hope these guys don't pull me aside going through customs. So I had to pull the paratrooper in and stand up straight and talk normally. But my point is that one of the things with edibles is you can think that you're not getting high, but you haven't given it enough time to get into your body. And for me, it was literally 3 hours and I didn't feel anything. And then when I took the second one, the first one must have just finally kicked in and then double the dose. I don't remember what the dosage was, but it didn't seem like too much for a guy that smokes pot with enough regularity that it's not a big deal. And so my tip for the listener is before you think you're not getting high, wait a little while.
Yeah, wait an extra hour, right?
Yeah.
I always tell everyone, especially your first time trying a new batch of edible or anything, even if you're seasoned, eat one and wait like literally 2 to 3, even sometimes 4 hours. Because like you said, you waited that 3 hours, which is like the common advice, 1.5 hours to 3 hours. But depending on how much you ate that day, airlines also seem to slow digestion down quite a bit.
Yeah.
I totally feel you on the airplane thing. I mean, being 6'5", I do not fit in small places that easily.
No.
And I don't sleep well on planes. And it's always that give and take of like, do I risk it and try to eat an edible before I go on a plane? And I just learned years ago, no, because the worst thing is getting paranoid or having that come up in my nervous system while I'm flying. Because then, especially if you're going to a different country or whatever, then you do have to go through customs and it never gets easier.
That brings up a question. Now, one of the things that now this is several years ago, so edibles have changed quite a lot. But this is one of the first times that it was like a rock candy. There was no marijuana substance in it. Back when I was younger, I would make marijuana brownies. My wife would make them, and there'd be ground up marijuana in it. So you'd be eating the actual plant.
Yeah.
But now they're using some very powerful extracts, and like you don't even see them in there. It's kind of like someone can drop LSD into your your sugar cube or your candy or whatever, and you don't even know it's there until you're dancing on the moon.
Yeah.
And the effect of it was different than eating the plant. It was I don't really know how to put it into words, but it wasn't. I think it's like the difference between a synthetic, like if you've ever tried 5-MeO DMT versus a synthetic DMT like NMDMT. The synthetic ones are wickedly powerful.
Oh,
They're very narrow, and that's where you run into machine elves and all sorts of stuff. I've never ran into machine elves on 5-MeO. I usually just have like the experience of total union with God, and bliss and just complete, utter, unspeakable beauty.
Yeah.
But when I did a year of training in how to use plant medicines for healing ceremonies with a doctor that has a lot of experience at that, we did about 45 ceremonies privately so that I could learn and experience a wide variety of different medicines. And we went through all sorts of stuff, which I absolutely love because I'm built for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I got a real strong ego, so I can hold myself together even when the world's turning into snow.
Yeah.
But I remember that the experience of these synthesized molecules, and like if you compare, say, mushrooms to an LSD experience, it's LSD's like very, very clean. It's like one channel, but mushrooms can take you into many, many dimensions and many varieties of experiences. And even, I can't even count the number of mushroom species I've tried. But from one species to the next, you can get a completely different experience.
They didn't know that. I mean, when I was getting into mushrooms back about 10 years ago, everyone said a cube is a cube is a cube, like cubensis strains. And so as a result of that, I had a lot of very challenging experiences because I thought, all of these are the same. And even at that age, I wondered, I'm like, how can that be? Because cannabis strains are very unique and different, even though they all come from the same plant. And so with mushrooms, I remember one experience where I got a strain called penis envy. I had no idea at that age. And we decided to make an 18-gram tea between two of my friends and I.
That's a very deep ride.
Yeah,
right
that was
there.
aggressive. It became an ordeal rather than an experience very quickly. And I had never really had I had some very powerful experiences with mushrooms to that point, but I only ever eaten mushrooms and I had done about an eighth. This is my first time making a tea. We didn't even know if it was going to work.
Oh, yes.
So it hits us. We start laughing at something we're watching. And I get this triggering thought that my throat was closing up, I had eaten mold, and I was going to die, all within like a fraction of a second. So I try to play it cool, go to the bathroom, try to make myself puke. Nothing's coming up. And so after about 5 minutes, I start realizing, wait a minute, if I was really going to die, my throat would have closed up already. And at that point, I felt the cosmic laughter hit me.
Yeah.
And the mushrooms were like, we had to check you. And before you wrecked yourself, now go lay in your bed and see some cool visuals, man. I literally remember it like it was yesterday. And that was the trip that changed my life forever. So I totally understand what you mean with mushrooms. I mean, they can be aggressive.
Yeah. And on that topic, I don't know if have you ever tried truffles?
No, I've never tried truffles yet.
Because truffles are the mushrooms that
yeah.
go under the ground.
Yeah.
And they don't have a fruiting body on them.
Yeah, they're just like mycelium, basically.
It just looks like a chunk of fungi.
Yeah.
And with the number of people that come here to visit me and know me, people are always handing me wild and exotic stuff. Here, try this. This will blow your mind.
Yeah.
And I tried, this is a couple of years ago now, I tried, I don't know, I did maybe five grams of a truffle that the person that gave it to me said, this is powerful stuff. But, I'm used to, I'm always interested in the most powerful stuff because I like a good, solid, deep journey. So, but man, it was like I was on ayahuasca. It had a really strong purging effect, and my guts were just aching, and I was having to breathe through my guts. So I've like shied away from the truffles because, my favorite ones are the ones you just put them in some juice or something and drink them. Or you can make a tea, but I like to just grind them up and drink them in some vegetable juice or fruit juice. But that truffle was powerful. It was a great psychedelic experience, but the purging of it and my body just did not enjoy that. And so I don't like when I have to, work to survive the stomach experience, the gut experience, while I'm also having a great psychological experience. Because it's kind of like having sex with someone that bites and doesn't realize they're hurting you. It's like, oh, I was really having a good time until my something started to bleed.
And no matter how many times you tell them, they just keep biting. There's no stopping them in this
exactly. The vampire lover. Fortunately, I haven't had to suffer too much of that, but we start training programs for those. But my point I was leading to is, like, what are they doing now to the cannabis to make these edibles to where there's nothing that you can see in there, but they're really acting, to me, more like a drug. Like, I felt drugged on that stuff. I was like, this is nothing like edibles I've eaten before. And it was kind of like came with a bit of a hangover effect too. Like
a green over.
Yeah. Like I was quite tired the next day. My head was foggy. It was almost like I had to detox the stuff. So I'm just curious, like, maybe there's some things people should know about in this regard.
Definitely.
Because, like, I don't mind an occasional marijuana edible, but I want to have a marijuana experience.
Exactly.
I don't want to have some chemical concoction that might be a laboratory generated THC or whatever it is. So what is happening? What do we need to know about that?
Yeah, great question. I'm so glad you asked this. There's a couple different things I'll go into. And when I say what I'm about to say, I'll probably say this again, but it doesn't mean that everyone that's making these products is doing so in a harmful way. Yeah. But I do want to bring attention to some of the industry's dirty secrets. All right. I love talking about this because as someone who worked in the industry, I got to see a lot of this stuff with my own two eyes. So overall, most edibles these days are made with concentrates. Now, concentrates are also known as hash oils. They're also known as dabs to some people.
Dabs?
Yeah, dabs. Like, dabbing is the art of essentially smoking concentrates. You're kind of vaporizing them in a way off a hot glass nail. Oh. But essentially, it's like a new way of smoking hash in an oil form versus like the brick hash that we used to get back in the day from Morocco or wherever. And
Lebanon.
So, yeah, I know.
Black Lebanese, baby.
Yeah. When I was in Italy, a lot of people over there had hash from Morocco and all these places. And it was the first time I had seen it in years. So it was pretty cool, actually. But it's interesting how there are some concentrates that we'll talk about first that are pretty good overall. If you want the highest expression of a concentrate, you want what's called live rosin, not to be confused with live resin, right? Because live resin uses a hydrocarbon to make, usually butane or propane, whereas live rosin is really just ice, water. They cryo-freeze the plant directly after harvesting it, right? They cut it down, they immediately put it in a deep freeze. That preserves the terpenes, right? The essential oils of the plant. Then they actually make bubble hash with it, and then they press the bubble hash in a heat press to make it turn into an oil. And that is called live rosin. If you get edibles with live rosin, they're full spectrum. They're just as nature intended. They're just going to be stronger.
That's a good thing to know.
That's great. Yeah. And live resin, same thing. It's going to be full spectrum, but it's made with a hydrocarbon. So if you're like you or I, or I'm sure all your listeners, you're not going to want to interact with that just because how long until we start seeing ads? If you use this product with this many hydrocarbons left in it, you're entitled to compensation, right? We all know those ads. And so the main one that people use, though, is called distillate. Now, distillate is made through a CO2 extraction process. And what they do is, in order to do it, they have to strip the plant of all its terpenes beforehand. Otherwise, they'll get burned off in the distillation process. So what you typically end up with is something that is almost pure THC, sometimes up to like 98, 99% THC with nothing else in it. And so it's not natural, right? That's not how God inherited and created this plant to be interacted with. Yeah. And so as a result of that, it can cause a lot of weird effects. Like exactly what you were talking about is exactly what I feel when I eat distillate edibles. It's very strong in an intoxicating way, but it doesn't have almost all of the rule book along with it. So you kind of feel like you're in the middle of no man's land with no story to go by, nothing to go by, and you kind of just feel off, right? And it can lead to that green over, that really like harsh feeling the next day. It can actually impact sleep because THC acts as a gas pedal to our endocannabinoid system. And with most people already in a fight or flight state, I think this is one of the main reasons so many people experience paranoia and anxiety as a result of distillate edibles and just cannabis in general. It's not that THC gives you those things, but again, if your nervous system is already in fight or flight and then you give it more stimulation, eventually you're going to start feeling the effects of that through anxiety, paranoia, etc. What's already there, but maybe was unbeknownst to you beforehand or unknown to you. And so most edibles are made that way. Now, here's the reason why distillate is not the best thing to go from. If everything I've said already doesn't give you some red flags, the thing is that if you have a grow operation or a vertically integrated dispensary where you have your cultivation, your lab, everything all under one roof, and you've spent millions of dollars getting this thing going, you have investors breathing down your back, and then you have something happen to your harvest, like powdery mildew or botrytis, right? Or any of these like mold issues.
Yes.
And even some insect issues, spider mites, whatever. There is a way to remediate this flower through the distillation process. So if someone loses their harvest to mold, they can remediate it through, partly anyway, it's a distillate process, a distillation process. And what's going to happen when that happens is it will strip the mold out, right? I'm not saying mold's getting left in there, but as you know, plants have frequency and everything is energy. So what's the energy of a bunch of sick plants that weren't tended to correctly?
Sickness.
Exactly. Being given to medical patients after and sick people,
shit,
you know?
That's a bad idea.
I mean,
the feeling that I had, because now that we're talking about it, I felt like I just couldn't wake up. You know, if someone wakes you up in the middle of sleep and you're kind of like half in and half out, for at least a day, if not a day and a half, fortunately I had a couple of days before I had to start teaching, but I was just like, felt like I needed to drink 10 shots of espresso or something to turn my brain back on. I was living in, like walking in a fog.
Yeah. It's not natural, you know?
You reminded me something I wanted to ask you about, more about, not so much a technical question, but have you ever had, when I was young, when I was probably 18, I was pretty heavy into road racing training as part of my boxing training. So I would do a lot of really intense cycling, and a couple of my buddies were competitive bicycle racers. So we'd go out and do really long rides and push hard, you know, for like 100-mile rides and stuff where it's just like, you know, you're just
aggressive.
hammering for hours at a time. And we used to like to smoke a joint, and it would kind of help us handle the lactic acid buildup and the pain of pushing that hard. And just through some friends, it turns out that the Hells Angels were bringing in opium-cured Thai weed. And me and my buddies got our hands on an ounce of that stuff. And I'll never forget, it was so unique. Beautiful, huge buds, like 6-inch long bud clusters, but it was caked in a black, oily tar, which had the opium in it. I've never had anything like that to this very day. I swear to God, there is nothing I've ever had. Since then, I've always been hoping I could find something like that. And it was clean as, too. I don't know, it must have came from Thailand or something. I found out that they were bringing it in entire like sailboats full of it.
Wow.
And same with black Lebanese hash, which also was really good. You know, me and one of my times, my buddy Lloyd Anderson, who was the 1986 world champion in full contact karate. This is before they had MMA, but him and I we would smoke a little bit of this stuff, and then we'd go spar. And one time, we were sparring like crazy, and we were just like so exhausted. And I said, God, Lloyd, I said, the round timer hasn't gone off. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I feel like we've been going forever. And it was one of these wind up timers. or it was an electric timer, if I remember right. But we were out in my backyard, and we had been going for 33 minutes.
Oh my God.
And we were waiting for the 3-minute timer to go off, but we were so jacked up on this smoke that we were just like killing each other for 33 minutes. But it's like a time warp. But the point is, it was very helpful for hard athletic training because it really helps take a lot of the pain and the stress of it out. And with boxing, you got to be super careful because you get just a little too much and your accuracy is off and you can't, your reflexes slow down. So it's pretty not a good idea, but we were, hardened vets. So we were just, beating the shit out of each other for fun. The kind of fun that young men do. You're young, dumb, and full of cum. But have you ever come across any of that opium-cured Thai weed in your life?
I haven't come across that. I'll tell you one interesting thing I came across. Actually, I just ran into the guy yesterday who connected me with the person who got me this. Such a funny synchronicity. But it sounds like what you had is like an old version, because there was different versions of Thai stick back in the day.
Yeah, it was Thai stick.
Yeah, there was some that was just wrapped, right? Cannabis, essentially big nugs. There was some they'd put opium in. I never got to experience it as of yet, but I would totally experience that if I had the opportunity to do so, just because it seems like something I would definitely be interested in trying out, It
was crazy good.
Oh.
I mean, not only did you have this beautiful opening, but it was lucid, like you were crystal clear. I used to bring my buddies over because I had a really badass stereo system like I do here. And I used to be a stereo fanatic. I had thousands of dollars with top-notch amps and speakers and everything. So a bunch of us would get together and puff this stuff and sit on the couch. And man, you would have like a mushroom type experience of the music. And it was just crazy good. I mean, there's nothing I've ever had that's that full-bodied and, and I never had any kind of addiction tendencies with the opium that was on it. And it made me realize why people can really get themselves in trouble with opium, because it's quite an experience, that stuff. I mean, for those of you out there, I am not recommending you go play with drugs. I'm just stating my own explorations. But anyhow, I just had that question pop into my head because I used to just be amazed when I would get this stuff and open the bag, and it was just like literally like black tar. And you just smoke a tiny bit of this stuff. Like,
wow,
you could roll a pin reefer and you didn't need a lot, and off you go, baby. And we would frickin' cycle our asses off, train our asses off. And it was just the greatest athletic performance aid. Hi, everybody. Have you ever wondered why your blood is red? It's because it's full of oxygen and life force. It's what keeps you going. But what if I could tell you about something else that's red that will add more life force and keep you going? And if you start with a red juice before you have coffee or tea and wait a few minutes, you might find that you either don't need the coffee or the tea, or you need less of it. But this time, instead of getting coffee and tea, you got a lot of nutrition and a lot of great stuff for stress management and detoxification. And it's so important. I got Drew Cannoli. It took me 2 years to get him to come hang out with me and talk about this. I said, Drew, tell me more about your red juice. And he is right here to tell us what is on with your red juice. My kids love it. Everybody I know loves it.
Well, I love that we have it for kids, because when I was a kid, there was this big red dude that would burst through a brick wall, and he was like, oh, yeah. And he would feed me a glass of 50 grams of sugar, giving most people diabetes, ADHD, addiction,
obesity,
all the things, right? So when we created red, it was, what's the alternative? If we could create something that could create lasting stamina, lasting energy, and then we started to look at our ancient ancestors. We talk about the Vikings, the people that were rowing across the oceans for days to go to war. What were they taking? Well, they were taking rhodiola. Rhodiola is in our red juice. And then we were like, okay, so out of all the mushrooms, what's one of the best medicinal mushrooms that can give us long-lasting energy? We found cordyceps. Cordyceps are absolutely amazing. Not just any cordyceps or rhodiola, glyphosate residue-free and organic. And how can we make it taste better Then how do we make it taste better than that without the sugar?
Yeah.
We added a little monk fruit.
Monk fruit's amazing.
Yep. And we found the best berries on the planet. Berries in high amounts, which we have in the red juice, actually help increase stem cell creation in your body. What's better than that for our little ones and for us?
Yes.
And so many people are just lethargic. They're lacking energy.
Yes.
What could we do for that? Red juice in the afternoon, 2 p.m. rolls around, instead of a nap, instead of the coffee, drink the red juice. You're going to feel so much better.
Well, if you need the nap, take the nap if you can, but then take the red juice to kick you back into gear.
Exactly. I love naps and I love coffee.
I do too, but I love to make sure I got the nutrition in me first. You know, the other thing is berries are a natural stimulant to the adrenal glands. So if people would do a little red juice before they do coffee and tea, they would pick themselves up naturally, except this time they're bringing in nutrition. And unfortunately, coffee blocks almost every vitamin and mineral you can put in your mouth. So hey, there you have it, right from the man himself.
To try Organifi's red juice and get 20% off your order, go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20 at checkout. That's Organifi.com/CHEK20 and the promo code is CHEK20 for a 20% discount.
You know, one thing that I've done that is definitely not the same, but it's same but different is I enjoy taking kratom and having cannabis with it.
Oh.
And kratom is a natural opioid antagonist. It's not an opiate, but it's natural. And it was one of those things also that I have a lot of friends that got into some really severe trouble with kratom and especially opiates living in Boston. But for some reason, luckily, alcohol and opiates for me never did anything for me.
I mean, I don't like alcohol at all.
The only thing I've ever liked is kratom. And, you know, so many of my friends have gone through withdrawals and everything, and I've never understood it. I can do it, not do it for 6 months. I really only do it for podcasts, like I was telling you about, because I feel it does something great in my brain. But back when I was first experimenting with it, there would be these times, it wouldn't be every time. There's definitely a Goldilocks zone that I never got down exactly. But if you connected with the right strain with kratom, it was like the best high you've ever had in your life. And very similar, you could go powerhouse a bike ride. You could make love. You could listen to music. I mean, it was almost like insert anything here and you're going to have the best time ever. And it really went along with the energy you had. Like you were saying, like if you wanted to chill on the couch and listen to some tunes and really go inward, boom, you could do that. If on the other hand, you wanted to go spa or you wanted to bike ride, you could do that. And I think the reason, you know, for that, I'm not sure about the kratom and the opium side, but with cannabis, you know, why do athletes, Michael Phelps, right? Sugar Sean O'Malley, someone we both know, so many athletes, why do they like cannabis? Well, not only is it an anti-inflammatory relief to the intense pressure of being an athlete, but also it invokes alpha waves, which is flow state.
Yeah.
You know, and I think athletes, if they can dose it properly, like you were saying, they can get directly into that Goldilocks zone where they're in the flow and they're just existing. And that's why time just flies by. You don't even notice. Yeah. I really feel like it's the closest we can get to being a kid again. You know?
Yeah.
I really feel that.
Yeah. It's, you know, this is why I like having these conversations on the podcast, because you do have to have a fair bit of skill and discernment nowadays. There's so much chemical Molotov cocktails out there. And as we talked about in the last podcast together, they jacking the THC up through the roof on these things, which made me want to ask you a question. What's the stuff they sell at weed shops? It's almost like a powder. I think it's the THC off the plant, but there's a name for it.
Is it keef?
Keef.
Yeah, keef. That's like unpressed hash.
That stuff is too strong for me, man. I don't like that feeling. It's kind of like the way I felt on that gummy marijuana edible candy.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is crazy strong.
Well, the challenge is they're jacking up the THC. Like for some reason, people are obsessed with this one cannabinoid, right? Which is THCA that gets converted into Delta-9 THC. And as a result of that, since the 80s and the modern hybridization movement, where people started bringing indica from the Middle East over and mixing it with the equatorial sativas they were getting from Mexico out of NorCal, and they started mixing them together, what started happening was, especially since the black market, everyone just wanted to get essentially fucked up, right? That's what a lot of people were looking for in that time. So what they started doing was going, okay, well, if I can only grow so much cannabis without having a big target on my back from helicopters or whoever else, I got to make the most of what I'm growing. So because of the black market, they started ramping up the THC to try to be able to grow the littlest amount and get the most money for it. And so as a result, a lot of these other minor cannabinoids and other compounds of the plant got essentially bred out
of the plant.
And now they're actually starting to breed them back in through the hemp industry and whatnot. But the challenge is that almost everything gets you too high. I mean, you've smoked plenty of my stuff. I seek out strains that are not over 20% THC.
Yeah, I find for me 12 to 16%, and it's hard to find them that low.
It's really hard.
One of my buddies brought me some marijuana that has no THC at all.
Oh, yeah.
Just CBD.
Yeah, like hemp flower.
Yeah, and I would just mix that with my tobacco, and it had a really relaxing, calming effect on my whole body. Not the kind that puts you to sleep, but just kind of like a stress relief type effect.
Put you into like vacation vibration, I like to call it. You know?
I just, I just found that, I don't smoke pot when I work because I don't do well with the kind of work I've got to do. I have to have too much focus. My two favorite times for pot is after I've got a solid day of work done and I can say, okay, I have my work behind me. Now I can relax and I'm not going to be kind of avoiding responsibilities or not being fully present with what I've got to do. But the other time is when I paint, and I can't use anything that fuzzes me out. Yeah. So occasionally I'll come across a strain that as soon as I try, there's a good art pot right there, and I'll keep it in my little special cabinet for artwork. But I love the way that I mix it with Daniel Maple. I don't know if you know who Daniel Maple is. He makes the animal essences.
Oh, yeah, the animal essences. I tried those with Tucker one time at Eddie's house.
Yes, I love them. And I've got a great podcast with Daniel Maple for anyone interested in animal essences. But my favorite for painting is Bobcat. And so if I mix Bobcat with a little tobacco and marijuana, I get the beautiful kind of connection to spirit above, but I'm grounded enough that the Bobcat helps me keep my paintbrush very stable. I find if I smoke pot that's too strong, I can't make straight lines or do fine details, and I keep going, oh shit, I screwed that up. It doesn't, like I have to redo stuff. I don't like having to waste all that time.
Oh, I don't blame you.
But if you get just the right combination of whether it be sativa or indica or some kind of hybrid, I never know until I try it because it doesn't matter what it says on the package. I have to try it. I have a very unique biochemistry and things that take other people down often take me up.
That's like my girlfriend. Rachel's the same way.
Yeah. And what takes me down or vice versa, I'm often the opposite. Like I've had many friends give me, this will really pick you up. Great for working out. And I'm like zombied out. I'm like, oh, that didn't work. But my point being is that I think I'm saying two things. One, I love it for painting because it helps me tap into higher dimensions and it actually supports my clairvoyance. So I might be seeing something in the astral dimension and then want to paint it, but I need to keep the image still. So it's almost like remote viewing and then painting what you're seeing. But if you get the wrong strain, then you're moving all over the place. You can't keep your mind still. And the way the astral dimension works and remote viewing works is wherever your mind goes, your vision goes. So if you're trying to paint something, it'd be like if you had a muse or model and every time you looked at her, she looked different.
Yeah, she's wearing something different every time.
Yeah, it's like, how do I paint this?
Where's the foundation
I need to paint 50 people here. But there's just so many things. Like it's become so complex and so tricky. And there's, as we talked about on our first podcast together, there's so much garbage out there. I almost feel sorry for people because, the average person doesn't really know what they're getting into.
They have no idea. And one of the biggest things about cannabis is that it's a bioremediator. So they're actually utilizing it to clean up Chernobyl. So it sucks everything from the soil.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, most people are interacting with cannabis that has heavy metals in it.
Yeah.
Not to mention pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, glyphosate.
Everything.
I mean, and the hemp industry is even dirtier, and a lot of people are getting what's called THCA flower now, which is definitely something I want to talk about because I don't believe that humans should be kept from natural plants.
Right.
And I also feel like it's man's obligation and duty to disobey unjust laws.
Oh, I believe it. My motto that I shared 1,000 times during COVID, if a law is unlawful, it's criminal to follow it.
Yes, 100%.
Before I forget, I've got a great podcast, which you may or may not have heard, with Danny Way and Alexander Karp.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Alexander Karp owns a laboratory here in Oceanside, and he's an expert at kratom.
Oh, cool.
And so he's got several different derivations. He talks about the ways they test it, what they're looking for. He removes the aspect of it that causes addiction.
Oh, wow.
So he knows how to extract that out of it in his laboratory so you don't get addicted to it. And because Danny's had to use, he found kratom was the best for managing his pain because he's probably like 26 or 28 orthopedic surgeries now.
Wow.
So he's got, bone on bone joints and a lot of, as you can imagine.
Yeah, being a skateboarder.
I don't know, Danny's like 40, I think he's probably 45 now. I think he's about the same age as my son. And to be a professional skateboarder that long, it's hard on the body.
Oh yeah,
I've known guys to get completely wiped out by the time they were 25.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all. And kratom's another one that's a very sketchy industry. Like people have to be very careful where they get it through. Make sure it's lab tested. Like do your due diligence with cannabis, with kratom, because there's so much garbage out there. So much garbage.
Well, that's why I mentioned the podcast. There's one other person in the podcast with him who's Danny's manager, and I'm brain farting on his name. But Alexander Karp and Danny Way, and it was probably, I would say, a year ago now. But a very, very good podcast on kratom. And Alexander knows kratom inside out and backwards. Wow. And he's a scientist, so he knows how to test all this stuff. But we've been talking about this somewhat, but you want to talk about cannabis as a personal growth tool. Why don't you share what you wanted to share on that? I certainly have some thoughts and reservations, but what's your thought in that regard?
Yeah, great question. And, I'll start by saying this. I don't think cannabis is objectively a personal growth tool unless someone understands how to utilize it, right? Like anything. Like a hammer can be great to put up nails with, but if you don't know what a hammer does and you try to put up, say, sheetrock and you're holding it in place with a hammer, how well is it going to work? Not as a result of the hammer, but the person actually utilizing it, not knowing how to actually utilize it. And so with cannabis, it works very similar. I'll explain kind of a scientific way that's very easy for people to understand. So when we think about brainwaves, right, we've already talked about the alpha waves that cannabis can get you into. But the reason that, say, for instance, our Breathe with Cannabis workshops work so well, why people are like, wow, what the hell just happened to me, is not something we invented, Chris and I that run it. It's something that has been used for thousands upon thousands of years.
Well, yogis have been using marijuana for as long as man's been, as long as yoga's been around.
Yeah.
Which is a long time. It's far older than the Abrahamic religions.
Oh, yeah. And certain sects of even the Sufi, the Sufis would utilize it. Whirling dervishes. Yeah,
Sufis, I've found many accountings of them using high quality hash as part of their ceremonies. Now, I've also interviewed a Sufi master who flat out denies that. He goes, those aren't Sufis. I'm like, yes, they are.
Well, I knew someone from Yogananda's lineage who was like, Yogananda loved cannabis and Kriya Yoga.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
I didn't know that. I would have never expected that.
He trained with the mentee of Yogananda. So whoever Yogananda's disciple was, or I don't know if disciple is the right term, but essentially mentee.
Well, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, this guy's name is Keith. I'll have to introduce you to him. He's he's a Kriya Yoga master. He had some really interesting info about Yogananda's lineage with that, And so it's very interesting how when you connect with cannabis and you know how to utilize it, and by how to utilize it, what I mean is that when you understand that you can only get out of something what you put into it. Yeah. So by setting an intention, right? It can be as simple or as complex as you want. You give the medicine a direction to work with it because it's a feminine medicine. So that's step number one.
The same with all plant medicines.
Yeah, exactly. You got to give it that intention for it to know what to do. It doesn't know why you're there. And if you don't set an intention, it's not like one's not going to get made. It's just whatever's rattling around in here. And you probably don't want to leave that up to chance, right? That's why a lot of people, I think, have bad trips, not just a challenging trip that they see the light through. It's because they have it's all random. They have no idea why it happened. But if you understand how to utilize intention and you connect with the plant with that intention, what can happen is cannabis can help you access the theta brainwave state, which is the doorway to the subconscious. And so if you understand that all your programs, patterns, stories, everything lie within that subconscious, it's kind of like your main operating system, and you know that cannabis can help you get in there, and you know what to do when you're there, then you can actually quantum leap the amount of time it takes to move through limiting beliefs, smash, victim stories, any of these kind of things. And that's what we see at our Breathe with Cannabis events. Why it works so well with breath work is that, there's a couple different reasons, but the breath gives your ego / your monkey mind something to focus on. And as soon as your mind gets out of the way, you know this better than anyone, the body knows what to do. It's just that the mind gives it stories of like, oh, we can't release that here. Oh, strong boys don't cry, whatever those stories are.
It's just like the cold plunge.
Exactly.
People's minds are the biggest obstacle to getting in the cold. I've heard every sob story. I won't even repeat them all, but I'm like, do me a favor. For once in your life, just listen to your body. Get in there. Shut the fuck up and ask yourself, what does my body think about this? And every single person that's done that not only could stay in 2 or 3 times longer than they used to. A lot of these people, they get their toe in, they jump out and they act like they're going to die. And I'm like, just let your body tell you if it feels good. And when they do, the body is saying, yes, it's great. I'm not saying everyone should do that depending on your overall health and other related factors. But I'm saying as a general rule of thumb, it's people's minds that get in the way of everything.
Oh, 100%.
From sex to work to making money, whatever it is. It's like, the mind is extremely powerful, but, very few of us ever get taught when we're young how to use our mind. I think minds and cell phones have one thing in common. They make far better tools than masters.
100%. And I have an analogy for this. I always say that our left brain, ego, whatever you want to call that part of our mind that's very physical, very linear, very 3D, that part goes to the gym since we were 6 years old. But our soul / the higher mind / our higher selves, we don't really get developed in Western countries anyway. And I guess a lot of the world, I would imagine, really ever in our life, unless we kind of just fall into this stuff through interests or passions or whatever. So it's almost like metaphorically, we've all skipped leg day. We have these jacked upper bodies, but our soul evolution is like skinny chicken legs,
Yeah, Charles Poliquin says, speaking of people like that, he goes, your torso is going to sue your legs for lack of support.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the biggest things. And, it's funny how once we get that mind out of the way, the body will just know what to do. And if you have something to keep you busy, right? That's why meditating with cannabis, it works incredible, but it's a little bit higher of an echelon of things to get used to because you can still be with all your thoughts. And so you can see it, and it's very easy to get clouded and kind of brought astray into the thought forms instead of just remembering they're all false. I forgive myself for ever falling into them and helping yourself wake up in the dream. They kind of incentivize you to get farther into the dream. And so with cannabis, if you know how to get there and you know what to do in that state, you can quantum leap the amount of time it takes to get through these things. Not to mention the fact that cannabis is the most practical plant medicine out there. Like if plant medicine is one avenue, not the only avenue, but one out of many that can help someone reach, let's say, enlightenment, let's just call it a causal term. If that's one path and we want people to be able to have access to that, ayahuasca is fantastic. Mushrooms are fantastic. 5-MeO, fantastic in the right setting. But not everyone has access to go afford those things. They're not legal in all places yet, right? So it's very hard for people to have like a experience with those medicines.
Those are also
a lot of times.
Much more explosive.
Yeah.
You're talking about if you don't have skill using things like ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD, the more powerful psychedelics, San Pedro, you can open the vault of the unconscious and release dragons that can cause a shitload of trouble. I mean,
oh yeah,
the long history of me helping people with plant medicines. And I can tell you, I've had situations where someone was coming to me for a healing ceremony, and I would think, okay, this is the right medicine for this person. Then I would check in with my soul. I'll have my soul connect to the soul of anyone I'm doing ceremony with well in advance, so I know what's going on. And I have a bunch of other things. I have them do mandalas so I can do art therapy on the mandala. I have them do tarot draws. So I'm like really looking into them. And I just have direct conversations with their soul. But I've had times where the soul of the patient or the client that I was working with said, too strong, don't do that. Too strong, don't do that. And I've gone all the way down to hash or marijuana. And I'm like, okay, this person's coming here paying me a lot of money to do a ceremony, and all I'm going to give them is pot. And man, I'll tell you, I have been so grateful that I connected to their soul, because the dragons that come out of people, even on a couple of puffs of good hash, I'm thinking, wow, if this person was on 5 grams of mushrooms, man, it would be a barn burner.
Yeah.
I would have to tie these people up to keep them safe from themselves and crazy shit. So I think that, there's so much trauma in humanity, and most people's childhoods were, I'd say far more people than not had enough painful experiences in their childhood that jumping into, what we typically would use for shamanic journeys, psychedelics, is potentially a very risky thing to do.
100%.
But marijuana is much more, it's easier to adjust. It's easier
more malleable.
It's not something that comes on with a bang. It's like there's just you could write a small book just on why it's a better way to start people and see what they're going to have to deal with. Because a dragon on marijuana is a King Kong on mushrooms.
Well, it's so true. And again, like cannabis is already legal in so many places, and through THCA, as long as people get it through a reputable company, that is federally legal now under the hemp 2018 Farm Bill. A lot of people don't know that here in the States, that if you live in a place like, I don't know, the Dakotas or somewhere that doesn't have medical or recreational or even decriminalization, you can purchase THCA flower and have it legally delivered right to your door. And then through workshops like Breathe with Cannabis, you can tune in through the internet. And the cool thing is too, that like you were mentioning earlier, let's say you're someone who's like, I've never tried cannabis before. I don't know if it's right for me yet. You can actually go out and get a test from Endo Health, one of my buddy's companies. His name's Len May, great guy. Wrote a book called Cannabis is Personal. And it will actually give you a DNA sequencing map of essentially like what cannabinoids, terpenes, ratios work well for your body. It'll also tell you if you have predispositions to schizophrenia, addiction, things of that nature. So you have that going for you. The next thing also is you can do hemp flower. So you don't need THC in order to have a spiritual experience with cannabis. You can have a psychoactive experience without the intoxication.
And that's which molecules do you think that are doing that without the THC?
So CBD, CBG, it's the interaction between all of them that's doing it. It's the entourage effect in living color, because there's still a very negligible amount of THCA or delta 9 THC. You'd
like
never notice
decaf
it.
coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
3% caffeine in there.
Yeah. And so you get enough of that, like, okay, I feel like you were saying, like relaxed. I'm totally still me. I don't feel anything in my mind going, haywire or anything like that. But I'm able to feel a little bit more connected to the world around me. Colors seem a little bit more vivid.
Yeah.
I want to go meditate. I feel like I'm going within. And so you have this ability to be able to, wherever you are in this country and a lot of other parts in the world too, Germany just legalized, you're able to have a psychedelic experience without having to go so deep. Because one of the challenges is now that people like Gwyneth Paltrow have shows about ayahuasca and mushrooms and all these things, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, yeah, so I just start with 5 grams of mushrooms, right? Like Terrence McKenna said. And I'm like, you can if you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if it were me, I wouldn't do that. And so a lot of people are confused. They're seeing all these benefits of like heart opening states, healing relationships. And like you were saying, it's preying on their trauma because they want those things and they're willing to do whatever it takes to go get them. But like you and I know with psychedelics, there's a Goldilocks zone. You can definitely open up way too much at once and come back more fractured than you went in, especially if you don't have the integration support, especially if you don't really know. Like, I mean, imagine going to the jungle for your first time ever. You go do ayahuasca for 5 nights. And then a week later, you're stepping back into a corporate cubicle, like what's that experience like? Who's going to help someone deal with that? Does that person even know they're going to have a stark difference between how they felt in the jungle and how they're feeling walking back into that job? What happens if they want to blow their whole life up? What happens if they end up thinking, I need to leave my marriage, and they don't know who to talk to? Well, that happens
a lot.
Yeah, it does happen a lot, And so again, if we can kind of edge the comfort zone with cannabis and start showing people like, hey, maybe there's a lot more than you thought was in there. Maybe on the other hand, there's not, but at least start to toy around with the cannabis experiences. It's a great way to kind of vet yourself of like, okay, I know what it feels like to be in a psychedelic experience. Now, at least I have some kind of context for what may happen on a mushroom experience. Very different, but again, at least I have some context of what's going to happen. Okay, if I get too upregulated, I'm going to come back to my breath. Okay, if I'm having challenges after, there's this thing called integration coaching. So those kind of things really help cannabis be, in my opinion, one of the best personal growth tools, because it allows you to just step back, right? When in doubt, zoom out. And almost every time I get into an argument with Rachel, or I'm having a challenge in business, if I make an intention, take a couple of puffs, and I go in the sauna, especially in an argument with Rachel, it's only about a minute before I realize where I was wrong in that.
Even though your partner.
Yeah, my partner. Yeah. And, even if my ego was like, you're totally right, which, again, red flag there, right? You're never all the way right. But, again, even if my ego is like, nope, she was 100% wrong, whatever, I will see my hand in it. I will see where I could have responded better. I could see where it had nothing to do with me and I took it personally. And that allows me the space, if I want to go make amends and say, hey, I don't want to show up that way. This is how I want to show up. Let's have a conversation, and we get closer together as a result of that. So there's so many intricacies about how I've really found it to be a personal growth tool. I mean, we could go into so many different examples of coaching clients with different issues, relationship challenges, business challenges. I mean, it's one of the best things for business growth too. I have a buddy, Keith Yackey, who actually lives around here. And I found him, someone sent me his profile and they were like, dude, you should reach out to this guy. And he does this thing he calls gummy tech. Now, this is a guy, I think he was a pastor or priest in his past life, let's say. And he found cannabis, and he had never had a dysfunctional relationship with it when he was younger, like most people I rehab did. And so he found that on Sundays, he would eat an edible, he would go into his man cave, and he would just lock himself in there, and he would just come up with business ideas. And then on Monday, he would kind of categorize all of them and put them into action. And he called it his church ceremony. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, that's really what's become our kind of church in these days, because organized religion has obviously had its many faults. And so for a lot of people, it's that way to connect with something greater and deeper than yourself and to pull ideas back from that realm. But again, if you don't know what to do with it from there, then it's just essentially mental masturbation. You still got to actually move your feet after that, right? Pray and move your feet are the two most important components to that.
Yeah. Paleo Valley makes some incredible superfood bars that are a lot different than what most people think of as a superfood bar. I've got Autumn Smith, the creator of their superfood bars, right here to tell you about them. Autumn, what is so unique about your awesome superfood bars?
Well, our superfood bars are unique because not only do they not contain refined sugar or GMOs or any of the freaky additives that you'll find in most bars or gluten or anything, but they're just whole foods. They're low in sugar. They're made with superfoods like ginger and broccoli and acerola cherry and collagen from grass-fed and finished animals, which we all know is like a fountain of youth. And so the best part about them, though, is probably the flavor. They come in chocolate and apple cinnamon, and we have so many more delicious flavors to come. And they're easy to put in your bag to feed for you with your kids. And I hope you love them all as much as I do. All you have to do to get access is go to paleovalley.com, and you can use the code CHEK15. That's lowercase CHEK 15, and you can get 15% off. And I hope you love them.
That's awesome. And just so you know, that's PALEO Valley.com. And I know you're going to love Autumn's superfood bars.
And now for fall, Paleo Valley are bringing back their pumpkin spice superfood bars. In addition to dark chocolate chip, red velvet, lemon meringue, and my personal favorite, apple cinnamon. You can throw one in your bag for an easy, healthy, and delicious snack anytime. To try Paleo Valley's superfood bars and get 15% off, go to paleovalley.com/Chek15. That's paleovalley.com/Chek15 for a 15% savings.
A question I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. There's kind of two camps with regard to the use of marijuana and mushrooms together. Various shaman and medicine carriers that I've met say don't mix the two, and then some say, oh, it's fine, they're synergistic. I'm just curious what your thoughts are before I share what I think.
Yeah, I think they can be very, very synergistic. I think the main thing is, and I'm going to use one of your quotes, until you learn to ride one horse, don't try riding two because they'll split you in half.
Yeah.
What I have found works best for me, I had many experiences, especially when I was younger, where I would, as soon as the mushrooms hit, we'd smoke a joint and we'd have a great experience. But a lot of times it was just nervous system overload where then your whole body starts shaking. And not that that's bad necessarily, it can be moving trauma or whatever. But it was almost like I just felt too much for what I needed in that moment. Where I found it helps really good is on the tail end of the mushroom experience. When you're coming down, right? You're touching ground. You remember your name. You remember you're a human. If you connect with the right amount of cannabis then, it almost opens up the mental plane and it helps you embody that ability very similar to what you were saying with art, to be able to actually start transcribing and making sense of the experience you had on the mushrooms. But when I asked Hamilton Souther about this, right, because I was asking him about ayahuasca and cannabis, because that one is one that gets a lot of attention. People are like, oh, they're jealous spirits.
The same
type of
do,
idea.
Don't do is out there.
Yeah. And, Hamilton was like, listen, man, he was like, in a lot of ayahuasca traditions or even mushroom traditions, cannabis was just never a part of that. And they've been around for 3, 5, 7, 10,000 years. So at this point, they're like, don't fix what's not broken. They're not going to include it because they don't really know what happens. But Hamilton was like, hey, if you were with me, I'd be like, come smoke this joint while we're on ayahuasca, right? Because, if we are the creator of our own reality and we are the one mind creating what's around us, dreaming the dream, then in reality, nothing is inherently real unless we give it credence, unless we give it some power there.
Spirit.
And
we got to put spirit into it.
Yeah. And so I think that's where the ayahuasca and cannabis or mushrooms and cannabis thing came, is someone maybe had an opinion around it or they had an experience and they created maybe a story around that and they wanted to protect or help other people. So they said, hey, be aware of this. And then that plants the seed in that person's mind. And it kind of keeps going. That's what I've noticed. Because again, for a lot of people I know, look at Santo Daime, for instance. They've been connecting with ayahuasca and cannabis in ceremony for a long time now. And to them, it's normal. So I think that's part of the challenge. They do mix them together. Yeah, they do mix them. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
My experience, first through my own experimentation, because I don't do things with anybody that I don't test first. It's just too dangerous. I find the spirit of the mushroom to be, I'm going to just use words that work for me, a wiser, deeper, if think of it as a metaphor, if you have a wise old hermit who's 90 years old and has seen a lot of life and is a really tapped in guide.
Yeah.
And marijuana to me is more like a 40-year-old wise man. I find that when you mix the two together, you get too many voices and you're not really sure who's telling you what.
Yeah.
And because, most of the work I'm doing is healing work. I'm not at all interested in helping people get high. They can do that on their own.
Yeah.
But people that come to me for help have stuff that they need help with. And a lot of them over the years have been people that want someone they trust to take them in they want to have a deep union experience where they completely lose their ego. And that's a much more, dangerous work. You got to really know what you're doing so that you don't.
So you bring them back home okay.
Yeah, you got to get people home. It's a much more high caliber work. But I think because it's, when you're doing healing work, you got to really be present with what's rising up. And it's not like you're not having a fucking party, you know. This is all can be very, very deep. I mean, I've had people relive past life deaths and traumas that were very, very intense. I've been through several of my own past life experiences that were very intense. In fact, the most intense of all was when Roseanne Grace was here. You know Roseanne Grace?
No.
Oh, she's a past life regressionist.
Oh, wow.
And she's really good at it. And she's married to my buddy, Chek professional Jeff Bryan, who's just a cool, badass guy. And I don't know if it was Jeff that suggested it to me. He said, like, Paul, you ought to have Roseanne on your podcast. And I said, well, you know, past life regressionists are kind of like psychics. There's some good ones and there's some lousy ones. And even though she's your girlfriend, in order to make sure she's for real, she's going to have to come do a past life regression on me, because I've hired professional past life regressionists in the past because I'm always curious about, long story short, but things happen in my life where somehow I know things that I've never been given any training on, but I all of a sudden will know exactly what to do with a patient or various things like that. And it always haunts me, like, how in the world do I know that? And it's not like I'm guessing. It's like I know it like I know how to tie my shoe. So I wanted to like find out, where the hell is this coming from? So I've had some really cool past life regressions with professional regressions before, but Roseanne came here, and it was my old massage chair was a little more comfortable to lay in. So I used to use that for my reading and stuff. But man, Roseanne took me on a past life regression that was so fucking painful. I cried so much my t-shirt was soaking wet.
Wow.
I was literally screaming from pain.
Oh, goodness.
And I won't go through the whole deal because it's on the podcast with Roseanne Grace. But there was nothing involved. I was straight as a cucumber, man. I was just like, it took me deep into a fairly, probably the most recent past life. And it was fucking intense as hell. And, but the point is that, you know, if you start doing that on medicines, you know, and you're not dealing with, if you don't have the skill to guide someone, you got the wrong combination of medicine. So my whole point in the conversation is, through my own research on myself, I found 2 chiefs and 1 Indian makes for confused Indian.
Yeah.
1 chief, 1 Indian. Indian knows who they're listening to.
Yeah.
So I have used marijuana at the end of a ceremony because I find it actually can ground people quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely.
Where if you do it all by itself, it can take you up and out. But compared to the mushrooms or other medicines, it has a really beautiful grounding effect and a calming effect, and it helps people sort of, you know, just, okay, I'm home. But generally, as a rule of thumb, I don't encourage people to mix the medicines because, as you know, people can get some really powerful messages and insights. And like you said, people can go home and get divorced or sell all their stocks or join an ashram or whatever. And I feel that you really need to know what spirit you're listening to.
Yes, so important.
And I find too, from my life's experience, because I was never a kid that drank alcohol. I had a very bad experience with alcohol that cured me forever of alcohol. And so I've always really found marijuana beautiful through my life since I was young, as a competitive athlete and kickboxer and boxer and all the crazy shit I did motocross racing. But having tested God knows how many strains, you know, I'm a lot older than you.
Yeah, so yeah, you've been around the block.
I've been, you know, I remember when you used to get marijuana for $35 an ounce.
Yeah, 3 finger bags.
And it was loaded with so many seeds, you'd have to spend hours getting the seeds out of it, or you were just smoking popcorn. You know, you ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah, the seeds popping the whole bowl out.
Or you're smoking a joint and it explodes and hits you in the face. It's like, so you get those seeds out of there.
That'll wake you up in the morning.
Yeah, but But what I'm saying is that what I'm calling the wise men, the spirit of the plant, can radically vary from one strain of marijuana to the next.
Oh, definitely.
Like but I find that mushrooms are quite consistent with the quality. If I'm going to get a hold of mushrooms, I'm going to go to super experienced growers and people that I can trust their feedback, because mushrooms, like marijuana, there's a wide range of quality and growth, how they're grown and the spiritual orientation of the growth and all that, just like marijuana. But I just find that the spirit of the mushroom, the quality of the information and the guidance is quite consistent from strain to strain if you're getting good stuff. But marijuana, it's kind of like a potpourri. You don't know what the energy is going to be. It can be, very wild and futuristic to very practical and everything in between. And so my point is I prefer not to mix those two, because of the nature of why. Like I will do ceremonies as a form of meditation, like asking a question, what is God? Like, and I will devote a whole ceremony to just that question and come out with, pages and pages of notes. And so for me, I use it as a tool of investigation.
Yeah.
And I don't need it. I'm clairvoyant. I've got plenty of skills, but I find it's a great facilitator, and it really opens the chemistry up in the brain. It's like it's a master key to multiple dimensions.
Oh yeah.
Where if I'm doing it without the medicine, a lot of it depends on the circumstances of my life, how much I've got going on. I might there's times where I might have to meditate for an hour to get to the place that I can do the work that the right medicine can get me to. Even if it took me an hour to get there, it keeps me there for 6 hours, so I can really, spend some time in church, so to speak.
Definitely.
Whereas without it, you might have to find that your mind keeps jumping off, because all of a sudden you're thinking about, what have I got to do today, or who's texting me right now or whatever. But I prefer to not have to jump around like that. So I think all these things, like you obviously do, are tools.
Yeah, 100%.
When I was a mechanic, I had a lot of tools. I had about $10,000 worth of tools. And this is when I was a young man. So that today would be like $20,000 worth of tools. I had 2 full-size, like 5-foot tall rolling tool kits, because I built my own race car engines and I did it for a living. Worked on engines and repaired cars. I went to trade school when I was young, so I got an automotive and industrial repair training in trade school. But like, if you need to change the hydraulic cylinder on a brake, you need a brake line wrench. You can ruin brake lines with the wrong tool. And I think if you understand and work with medicines to where you know what the tool is for the job and how much of that tool is right for the job, you can really help people. You can get more done in 2 to 5 plant medicine ceremonies than people get done in 10 or 20 years of psychological counseling.
100%.
I've had people that have been to many, 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 many hours of counseling for addictions, and I've had alcoholics. I've had all people like eating disorders, and 1 or 2 ceremonies that completely wipes it out.
You've seen the posts and videos of Paul in his rock stacking garden, standing beside a rock stack that is easily 3 times as tall as he is. Maybe you've wondered how on earth he gets those rocks to balance in seemingly impossible angles and configurations, or how he stacks the top rocks over 10 feet above his head. Well, now you can get the answers to all those questions and experience the wisdom of the stone Buddhas, as Paul calls the rocks, for yourself at the upcoming Zen in the Garden Rock and Soul Workshop. It all happens on September 27th at Paul's home in the north of San Diego County, California. Paul will show you techniques to access and gain soul guidance and ways to calm and center yourself to let your soul guide you when working with the stones. You'll also learn the essentials of effective and safe stone lifting for some good old primal conditioning with stones. And Paul will show you how he uses stones to get an incredible workout that goes far beyond anything in a gym. We invite you to join us for a fun, sweaty day filled with stillness, movement, good food, great water from Paul's stone water charger, amazing people, and a whole bunch of rocks. Go to paulchek.com/events for full details and to register. That's paulchek.com/events.
I mean, it makes perfect sense because, and this is my whole, not even argument, but statement, I guess I'll say on plant medicine is it's not for everyone. It's a tool and you don't necessarily need it, right? That's why we have our sober practices, our spiritual practice. But in terms of efficiency, if you understand how to work with these medicines, just like you're saying, you can get so much done in a rapidly shorter amount of time. Now, there are some risks that come along with that we both talk about often on our podcast and everything, that you can have psychosis, you can have these things that happen.
Well, that's why you got to screen people properly.
Exactly.
Most
100%.
people don't even know how to screen people.
Yeah.
The people that come to me broken quite often are people that I would never have let go on a plant medicine ceremony.
Yeah.
They're just, a lot of my patients have to do 2+ years of therapy because I believe if you can't manage your mind when you're straight, you should not be freaking, if you can't swim, you don't want to go to the Amazon and swim with crocodiles.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's not going to be a good outcome.
Start with a small local swimming pool with a couple of lifeguards hanging around.
Start with your pond down there,
Yeah, exactly. It's like people, especially young men, it's kind of like, it's the testosterone. You think, oh, you're a badass. You're going to go, do 3 rounds of ayahuasca in the jungle. And next thing you know, you're being, you're being dismantled and spread across the world in small pieces. I'm brain farting on the myth of, who was Isis's husband?
Oh,
Horus.
Horus,
maybe.
Yeah.
It's the myth of Horus where he got dismembered.
Yes.
And cut his penis. His brother. His brother did it to him, I think. Set.
Yeah.
And so you can have one of those experiences.
Yeah. Which is not as fun,
No, not in a group setting where people are screaming their heads off and vomiting and shitting and freaking out. And
you're picking up their entities or God knows what they came in with.
Yeah.
And you're walking through an airport on the way back when you're still completely open.
Yeah.
Those can be scary experiences that a lot of people just don't know about. And that's like one of the things I wanted to share is that, even better than I do, that plant medicine, if we go back, say, 10,000 years, plant medicine wasn't the thing that it is today. It wasn't like, hey, you're a newbie, you're showering in fluorinated water, you're still eating fast food, and now, hey, I'm going to go do ayahuasca. It wasn't like that. No. You had to be trained for years and years and years on how to manage your mind, how to manage your emotions, how to astral project, how to do all these things so that you understood them when you got into that space. And I think that's one of the challenges today is that we're so used to a culture that's like, I have a problem, take a pill.
Yeah.
So even though this isn't a pill, it's very similar in terms of a mechanism.
It's a biochemical form of modulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people just think like, oh, I go take ayahuasca and I'm cured. Yeah. And it's like, no, a lot of times it's actually kind of like the healing crisis. It gets worse before it gets better because now you shine a magnifying glass on everything that was in the shadows. So like you talk about, there's some awesome golden stuff in there. There's a lot of your divinity, but there's also some creepy crawlies that actually are not creepy crawlies objectively, but that somewhere along either your path or your lineage's path, you or someone in your lineage learned these aren't good parts of me, whatever it is. And so you kind of section them away.
It's also family trauma.
Yeah, family trauma.
Not even your own.
Like, exactly.
Family tree trauma.
Yeah, like lineage trauma, ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know what you're going to open up when you go in there. And so that's why I tell everyone, whenever anyone comes to me and they're like, I really want to try cannabis. I'm like, well, hey, what's your meditation practice? Do you have a spiritual practice you're already doing? Have you done intense breath work before? Like, kind of where are we at here? Because I'm not just going to go throw cannabis at everyone. It's not everyone's plant, and it's not everyone's plant all the time. I just finished up a 6-week break. I just have these times where I feel like, okay, I'm good for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I come back in when my intuition tells me to. And, again, when I had first podcasted with you, I was still very strict on my Monday through Friday, no cannabis, unless I was here, of course. And then weekends would be my time that I would go in and explore. And I kind of talk about these 3 phases that people can go through. Now, if you're a new user, you'd probably skip the first phase if you're listening to this podcast. But for me, I went through 3 phases, which is complete unconscious use. I didn't know cannabis was anything more than just, hey, I really like this. Like
Party drug.
Yeah. I never liked alcohol. It connected me a lot more to my ability to be a musician. It opened me up to like amazing, conspiracy videos like Zeitgeist and changed my life forever.
Yeah.
But, it was completely unconscious. I was smoking it all day, every day. I thought I needed it to survive, that whole thing. And then there comes a point, which happened for me back in 2019, where I realized, wait a minute, there needs to be a shift here, because now I'm aware of what I wasn't aware of just a moment ago, which is that I am using cannabis. I'm not connecting to it. And also I'm using it as a scapegoat for why I can't get farther in life. It's kind of like I'm building up all this frustration necessary to make a change in my life.
Yeah.
But at night I go home and soothe myself, and I'm not making a shift. And within that second phase, there's also a second awareness point, which is that I can't keep blaming the external reality. This plant, my mom, my dad, whoever, I get to be in control of my own life, and I get to figure this out. And so that was the phase I was in the first time that I podcasted with you. I'd been in that for about a year, where I was like, okay, let me show myself I can be disciplined with this plant. Now that I know my why a lot deeper, it was a lot easier. It literally didn't even feel hard after that, because I knew why I was doing it. And then at a certain point, you evolve into phase 3, which I call the last phase. And that phase is really intuitive use. And this happens again with food. Like, every time I see you about to eat anything, you check in with your soul first. And whatever your soul says, you go with. You don't have a strict diet you follow. You don't have anything you follow except for what your intuition tells you. But I imagine you didn't start there. You probably went through like a lot of diet fads and things like that.
Well, I tested everything.
Yeah. And that's a lot of, how cannabis works too. Like at this point, it's much more intuitive in nature. But I tell everyone, just because I'm saying that on the podcast, if someone listening right now is in phase 1, they could hear that and be like, oh, well, my intuition is just telling me I'm in phase 3 now. So you have to have a lot of discernment and really ask yourself, why am I choosing to utilize this plant? Am I doing it to forget, or am I doing it to remember? Because that's a really important question.
I think another thing that I would throw on the table there is your use of cannabis or any substance actually tangibly enhancing your ability to be productive, to manage yourself, and to contribute to your own, whether it be, I would say your own stability, your ability to, pay your bills, be creative, take care of yourself, manage yourself in relationships? Is it making you somebody who could be an example for people younger than you?
Definitely.
And know that your leadership is steering them in the right direction? Or is it something you have to medicate yourself with because you keep making any number of excuses about why your life's this, or why you're broke, or why nobody loves you, or whatever? I think if you're caught in the victim, the saboteur, or the prostitute archetypes, and you're using marijuana to medicate it, you're just getting deeper.
Oh, you are.
And there's a lot of people that do that. And they're not just young people. It's like I see a lot of cannabis misuse all the way up into the 50s.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I have to rehab a lot of those people.
Yeah.
People that are smoking. I just worked with a guy who was smoking an ounce every 2 days.
That's an expensive habit.
I know, it's a very expensive habit. He wasn't a grower either. I'm like, how are you avoiding this, my brother?
Yeah.
And, again, at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm not here to tell anyone what's right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. So if you want to be right, you're wrong, right? One of my favorite sayings ever. But at the same time, like, if you're consuming an ounce every 2 days and you don't have cancer, for instance, you're running from something. There's no way someone needs an ounce of cannabis every 2 days, and that's their highest experience. I've never met anyone, and I've met a lot of people that have very beautiful, conscious relationships with cannabis, you and myself included. And at the end of the day, the amount I need now is so little compared to what I needed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's almost hilarious. Being a grower, that's why I gift most of my stuff away, because it's just like I don't, utilize that much of it. What I really like it for, like you were saying, to bring it back to a little while ago, is a couple different things. Lovemaking, fantastic.
Yeah,
for lovemaking.
I think it's especially great for men that prematurely ejaculate.
Oh, 100%. That's one of the main things I help men with when they come to me with premature ejaculation, is getting onto some form of cannabis. A lot of times hemp products, but yeah, it's really big for that. And then the other thing is music. You know,
Yeah.
My favorite thing is just like you. I like doing it. I only like doing it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It gives me like, if I connect with cannabis in the morning, I literally haven't done this for about 9 years or more now.
Yeah.
But it just makes me feel like I'm cheating. It makes me feel like now I have nothing to look forward to at the end of the day. I haven't done anything this day to reward myself with that. I feel like I haven't been responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I get through all my responsibilities, all the checklist items are done, and it's my time to go play, what I'll do is I'll connect with a little bit of cannabis. Maybe I'll have a conversation with my partner, Rachel. We'll talk about our days together. And then I'll go play guitar and I'll just turn on Spotify. I'll find some classic rock song and I'll be like, cool, let me go learn this. And I'll just dive into that. You know, my father, who you know is a big part of my journey, he also was a big part of my music journey. And so I've gotten a lot back into playing music the last couple of years because it's another way I connect to my dad. So sometimes I'll find an old song that he liked and I'll be like, let me go try to learn it. You know, because when he was alive, he was a really big fan of 50s music. And so he would always want me to learn these, you know, songs that I wasn't interested in. And so now,
Brothers?
Emily Brothers, exactly.
Love 'em.
Oh, now I love
this
Moody
day.
Blues, Moody Blues.
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff. Now I'm obsessed. You know, I was about 10 years too late to everything he was telling me. But, you know, Beach Boys, all that kind of stuff. So fun.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really allows me to get closer to myself. That's what I really feel it does. And I can go weeks without it and still feel that connection, which is how I know it's conscious. I don't need it for that. But damn, if I got 2 hours at the end of the day to spend with myself, and it takes me sometimes an hour, like you were saying, to get into that state, and I only got 2 hours, I'm going to utilize something. I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what I'm looking to get from it. It allows me to enter that state of mind where I'm able to get right to that peace point, and then boom, I can go into playing music. It's great.
I think Mother Nature put all these tools in the tool chest for a reason.
100%.
I've got quite a comprehensive selection of books on psychedelic research and you know, a lot. I'm just one of these shelves over here, but in one of the books, the author, who's I believe a PhD biochemist or something like that, did research on animals and insects, and he found pretty much every animal and insect ever studied has their own selection of psychedelic drugs and intoxicants like alcohol, you know, various molecules that get them high. But they show very clearly that like ants will ferment. They'll take pieces of fruit and ferment them, and then they'll, you know, when they're full of alcohol, they'll drink them. There's a whole bunch of examples in there, but it's like these things are in nature to support nature in naturing. Because, you know, nature can be quite brutal.
Yeah, I can.
And when you've got a farm like we do, you know, we have to watch very carefully. For example, if one of the chickens gets sick, the other chickens will attack it and kill it. They're very quick to weed out the weak. Point being is that, you know, nature's a tough lover. And so, but she's also a great doctor. She leaves you the healing medicines around. And a great story of that. Do you know the story of Harry Hoxsey? The
No, I don't
natural.
think so.
You'd find this mind-blowing.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it.
Harry Hoxsey was a naturopathic physician. I think he was from here in San Diego, actually. And the long and the short of it, there's a documentary, just like Hoxsey. If you search it on Amazon, you'll find a documentary too. But Harry Hoxsey was a naturopathic physician, and he had a horse that got severe cancer, and it was a horse that, you know, had been in the family for a long time and they really loved. And so they thought that they should keep the horse in the barn because it was sick. And it dawned on him that, you know, the horse would probably feel better if he could be out in the open in the fields and just, you know, do what he wanted to do and not be stuck in a stall all day. So they let the horse out to range in the fields. And after a couple of weeks, and I'm just paraphrasing the story, they noticed that the cancer was curing. And so Harry Hoxsey, being a naturopathic physician, said, this is interesting because he wasn't doing well until I let him out. So he started following the horse around and found that he was eating all sorts of strange things like flowers and thistles or various stuff that horses don't normally eat. And the horse cured itself of cancer. So what he did is he wrote down everything the horse was eating and used that, and he created a natural cure for cancer that's still being used in cancer treatment centers to this very day.
Wow.
And I know people that have been cured of cancer by this formula.
That's wild.
And the story is of the I think it was the FDA or the AMA. The AMA got wind of the fact that he was curing so many people from cancer. And they came to him and said, "We want to buy your formula." And he said, "I will only sell it to you under one condition. You must treat anybody that comes for help that cannot afford the treatment. On those terms, I will sell it to you," because he did not want it to be limited to socioeconomic class. He wanted to be able to help people heal. And the AMA refused to do it. And he said, "Well, I won't sell it to you then." And they said, "We will put you out of business then." And that began a war. But what they didn't know was that Harry Hoxsey's family was in the oil business and he had a lot of money. He was a very wealthy man. And apparently he walked around with $10,000 cash in his pocket all the time.
Wow.
And they kept busting his clinics, arresting him, throwing him in jail. It was so many people knew him because he'd helped so many heal from cancer that they got to the point where it was hard for them to put him in jail because piles of people would show up and bring him cooked turkeys and pies and cakes, and it would clog the parking lots and the streets up. And so they were like, "Oh my God, this is a nightmare." But the long and the short of it, they ultimately put him out of business. But he was the first one to beat the American Medical Association in a lawsuit.
Wow.
And he proved that the then AMA director, I believe it was Morris Fishbein, failed in medical school, wasn't even qualified to be a physician, and was doing all sorts of dirty shit behind the scenes. And he ultimately beat the AMA in court.
Gosh.
But then they kept after him. They kept crashing. So they pushed him down into Mexico. But the point I'm making is that Harry Hoxsey learned how to create this by studying a sick horse and watching what it ate to cure itself from cancer.
So wild that happened. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Like this guy, Harry Hoxsey, sounds a lot like Rick Simpson, the guy that made essentially Rick Simpson oil or full extract cannabis oil so popular. In his organization, Phoenix Tears, they've been curing a lot of people for years with cannabis, right? Not like smoking it for anyone listening, but eating the oils. And it's fascinating that like we've gotten to a point in society where it's shocking and kind of like some wow factor to say that plants can cure cancer, right? Like I'll tell people a lot when clients come to me and they're like, "Yeah, I have some shame or guilt around how I was brought up around cannabis or whatever." The way I'll kind of try to decouple them is say, one of the craziest things that's ever happened in our society is the powers that shouldn't be, the government, whoever you want to call it, creating narratives to make people believe that somehow natural plants are good or bad depending on what imaginary line they're on, right?
Yeah,
like that's literally what they're trying to get us to believe.
Yeah. I point that out with religion.
Yeah.
And the way I point it out to my students in the Spirit Gym is I say, first of all, you got to remember all religions are mythical structures. But second of all, right behind you, I've probably got 800 books on religion. I don't know. I've never counted them all. But I've studied world religion for a long, long time because of all the problems it creates. And one of the exercises I suggest my students do is you go get out the Bible, go get the Torah, go get the Quran, go get your favorite Buddhist texts, go get Patanjali's sutras, go get some the Upanishads and some Vedic scriptures, and there's 12 major world religions. There's really 5 key ones according to Houston Smith's teachings, but if you look at the percentage of people in any of the religions, you say, okay, let's take the top 12, and then you go through and see what attributes they ascribe to God, what commandments they demand you follow because that's the word of God, what food restrictions, sex restrictions, money restrictions, clothing restrictions, music restrictions, dance restrictions. I mean, these religions got restrictions on almost every damn thing.
100%.
And then I say to my students, is each of these religions talking about the same God, or are they 12 different gods? And they all agree. There's no question. These are 12 different gods. That's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one God, or you don't know what the word God means. And so that's why in Spirit Gem, I say capital G, little o, little d represents the highest power of a belief system.
Mm.
Capital G, capital O, capital D represents that for which there is no other.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing behind God. God is the only being that can create and sustain itself. All these other gods are stories that are often used to control people and make money. A lot of them, Osho says religion's the most financially successful corporate enterprise in the world.
Oh, 100%. It controls people by fear.
Yeah.
And it kind of holds the ultimate carrot over their head, which is like, hey, if you're not a good boy or a good girl, then you're going to go to hell. You're a sinner right from birth. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that doesn't sound like God at all. It sounds like a parasitic entity that somehow interjected itself into this world, specifically to mess with people. It's kind of like the ancient Anunnaki story.
Yeah.
Of Enki and Enlil, that Enlil was actually like the depiction of the devil, and everyone just now knows him as God, whereas Enki was kind of like actually God, right? Not in this, it would be capital G, lowercase O and D. But like in this story, it's kind of interesting how they flipped the devil and God. And when I look at institutionalized religion and I look at like everything that's happened, I was just at the Vatican about 3 weeks ago, and you walk through there, and you go to the Colosseum and you go to all these places where Catholicism is really heavy and religion's still very big. There's some beautiful paintings, but like half of them are people with knives getting put in them and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't feel like that is the God that I understand to be God. It seems like this entire fear campaign and smear propaganda, just like cannabis has had done to it. Oh, it's going to rot your brain.
Yeah.
If you smoke a quarter of a joint, you're going to run down the street with a hatchet. It's like all these kind of things. And if how we do anything is how we do everything, of course, it's in everything we have.
Have you ever read or listened to the book, The Immortality Key by Brian Marescu?
I've listened to about a quarter of it. I have to go back and finish it.
It gets better and better as you go, by the way.
I've heard. Mark England is the one that turned me on to that.
Yeah. I read it for research, sections of it, but I listened to the whole audiobook when it first came out. I tried to get him on my podcast, but he was traveling at the time, and I haven't been able to reconnect. I just haven't had the time. But he shows beyond a shadow of a doubt the Vatican was the first drug cartel in the world.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yes, it sure does. But anyhow, let's see, before we close up, we've been going for a while. Let's have a look at our list and decide what we want to connect to next.
Ooh, yes.
Now, Ryan, one of the things you talk about, which I find very interesting, and I'm very interested myself to hear your thoughts on this, is why indica, hybrid, sativa categorizations are maybe not what we think they are, which I'll preface that by saying I'm finding it over the years, it's getting fuzzier and fuzzier because I keep trying to find an indica that will help me sleep. And I'm finding them harder and harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll get lucky, find one, and it'll really put me down at night. And then it disappears and I can't find it again. Or I try it again and it's something different. Maybe they're putting something else in the same bag and whatever. But I'm finding that they're crossbreeding these things to the point now we're in this state of oblivion where you don't know what end of the donkey you're dealing with. So what's actually going on there?
Yeah, the challenge is that, because of that hybridization I talked about earlier, what's happening is that everything's becoming an amalgamation these days.
Right.
And so what I tell people is it's not that indica and sativa specifically are myth, but in terms of like effect-based, that's where the myth kind of comes in. They're really good to describe the stature of a plant. Like if a plant is short and stout, I'll say it's growing like an indica. If it's tall and lanky, I'll say it's growing like a sativa. But you don't really know what the effects are going to be unless you actually know the cannabinoid and terpene profile. So I always talk about cannabinoids being the gas and brake pedal in your experience, specifically THC being the gas pedal, CBD being a brake pedal. They might tell you how fast or slow you're going to go, but what direction. So that's where terpenes come in. Because if you see something that's, say, high THC, and has a high myrcene content, or even linalool, for instance, you know that's going to be a fast strain into relaxation, because those terpenes are really good at relaxing. On the other hand, if you see a high THC and you see pinene or terpinolene or limonene, you're going to know that fast speed is going to send you into an upregulated, excited state, like a euphoric state. Really good for things like lovemaking. Potentially, if your nervous system is not already overloaded, really good for mental stimulation, like we were talking about earlier, but not the best when it comes to relaxation. So the challenge is, let's say that you find that you love Blue Dream here in California, and you're like, oh, Blue Dream is my favorite strain ever. You keep getting it from your dispensary. They say it's an indica. You're like, this is perfect. Let's say you fly over to Massachusetts to come do some bags of me, right? And you go to the dispensary and, oh, they have Blue Dream. You're like, wow, what a world. I can grab the same Blue Dream. And you grab it, and you don't realize that the terpenes on the actual printout are totally different than the ones back in California. What's going to happen is, in California, you could have gotten the blueberry pheno, because Blue Dream, for instance, is 2 different strains, blueberry and haze put together. Whereas in Massachusetts, they could be growing the sativa, the haze variety, right? And so if you knew how to look at the terpenes specifically, and let's say in California, there's a high myrcene content, there's high, linalool, whatever it is. And you're like, okay, great. And then you go to Boston, and when you check out the package, you're like, pinene and terpinolene. No, actually, what do you just have here that has a lot of myrcene and linalool? And they'll say, oh, we have this over here. Sure. And you'll say, okay, great. That's a much better way for someone going to a dispensary to figure out what the actual effect is going to be, because everything is a hybrid these days. Like I was telling you, I've been trying to find a knockout indica to grow for the last 6 years, since the last one I grew, which was like an OG Kush variety or something. And I have not been able to find it. I'm not sure if it's a result of the biogeometry that I utilize, because it does make everything very clear-headed. I'm also not sure if it's vaping versus smoking, but it's very hard to find those classic indicas, even when I'm going through heirloom or landrace strain companies. So again, it's not that it's necessarily a myth these days. It's that it does work really well if you're looking at, to describe the stature of a plant. But when it comes to effect, look at the cannabinoids, but more so the terpenes, and that will tell you what actual experience you're going to have and effect you're going to have.
I'm super excited to let you guys know that I found an amazing energy product. I had previously fell in love with Update, but my buddy Aubrey, who is here with me right now, came to me and said, Paul, I've got something I think you'll like even better than Update. And I was suspicious because it's pretty hard to beat it. So I waited for the right day when I felt like I could really use a little energy boost, and I tried it, and I was absolutely blown away. Not only did it give me a beautiful, smooth lift, but I felt like a sense of holism, integration, like I had been doing Tai Chi. It flowered. It was like the sun shining. And I thought, wow, this is actually pretty damn good, and it's worth me telling people about. So I've got Aubrey here to tell us a little bit more specifics about his amazing new Correct Energy product. So Aubrey, tell us a little more about it. It's a phenomenal product. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, I wouldn't have started another supplement company after Onnit if we weren't able to make this product. This product actually birthed the company.
Oh, great.
It was so good and so powerful and so important, I felt like. And it was like, we have to launch this product. We have to build a company to allow this to be the core. And like you said, the main ingredient is the same as it is in Update, which is the Infinity, that paraxanthine, which is a caffeine metabolite. So it's something that your body naturally breaks caffeine down into in the body.
Yes.
They were able to isolate that. And it really feels like in some ways, like the spirit of caffeine. Like
yes.
It killed the very essence of caffeine itself. All of the things that we wish caffeine would do and all the things we wish caffeine wouldn't do. It captures that in a really unique way.
And none of the buzz that I get from caffeine, it's just smooth. It's really amazing, smooth, uplifting energy. And I don't feel any hangover or letdown from it at all. It's just really just like a little elevator ride up to a higher level of creativity and self-expression.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful parts about it. It feels both completely subtle and absolutely powerful. Like you'll take it, may even forget that you took it, but then realize you just had the best 6 hours, that you've had in a long time. And I think it's a combination of that paraxanthine core
Yeah.
The Infinity is the branded core, which is a scientific advancement, isolating this caffeine metabolite. Then we do what, we always do and surround it with the best plant extracts. So Mangifera indica, it helps support the dopamine pathway. It's actually from the mango. And then Alpinia galanga, we have a branded extract of that. And that was a real insight that we had. We looked at the different plant extracts that worked well with caffeine and made the bet that those things that worked well with caffeine would work well with the caffeine metabolite. So both of these different herbal extracts actually inhibit the breakdown of dopamine in the body and then support actually what caffeine would do. So we have these natural plant extracts, including quercetin, decaf green coffee, decaf green tea. So we treated this like there's a natural intelligence to caffeine. We've isolated the intelligence of what the body does with caffeine and then surrounded it with the herbs and different compounds to give this kind of holistic formula that I really believe it's the best energy product that exists
out there. I wouldn't be here with you. I don't sell or offer anything that I don't fully trust and use myself and wouldn't give to my own family. So I'm so grateful that you created this and shared it with me. So for those of you that want to give energy a try, go to Correct Life. That's KORRECT life.com/Spirit Gym and get 15% off on your first order. Aubrey, thank you again.
You're welcome.
I've got a question that's also an idea for you. I think due to all the things we've discussed on this podcast and our first podcast together, that you're the perfect guy to write a real practical, easy to read marijuana user's guide or a glossary of terms. Like what is a phenolic, a terpene, an alkaloid? What are the ones? What do they do? How do you read the labels on these things? Because like as good as our intentions are, very few people are going to remember these names except, I remember Ryan Sprague saying, you got to look at this, but what the hell was that? And, I get marijuana with lab reports and it's got like 50 items on there. And I'm like,
what is all this?
Does it? The only thing I know is try it, see what happens. And,
trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I've probably got right behind you over there. I would imagine I've got 30 dictionaries on science dictionaries, symbol dictionaries, metaphysical dictionaries. I've got dictionaries of negative entities. I've got dictionaries of angels. I've got dream dictionaries. I've got Sufi language dictionaries, Buddhist dictionaries. Because I it's important for me to understand what people are saying, right? And not kind of just guessing at it, or you can get yourself very lost and think you know what you're talking about. But I think even a glossary of terms on your website, but it would be a great, like something that you could put in your pocket, a pocket-sized dictionary that has the most important terms and what are you looking for if you want a certain experience? What is the chemical profile that you're looking for more or less of?
Definitely.
And that would be a phenomenal thing to sell right in all these marijuana shops all over the world, because I don't think I've never seen one like that. Is there one?
There's a couple books out there that I got to give some credit to. They are amazing. There's one called Cannabis and Spirituality, but it's not so much a glossary or anything we're talking about, but it is a very informative book. The reason I'm kind of laughing and smiling is you're reading my mind. Actually, my next project is, and this is the first place I'm going to announce it, that I'm creating a book called The Long Lost Cannabis User Manual. Because I always joke about how we never got a user manual for cannabis.
No.
And so this is going to be a very small book. It's going to be easily digestible, and it's just going to be exactly what you need to learn how to actually work with this plant in a conscious way. Because again, like you can get so bogged down into the science, right? And it's like, hey, science is cool, whatever, if you want to mess around with that. But what do you actually need to know? Like, what's just the bare minimum that you can remember, right? Like, okay, terpenes, steering wheel. Cannabinoids, gas and brake pedal. Okay, I got that down. Okay, let me figure out what terpenes are relaxing, which ones are energizing. That alone is going to be pretty much what anyone or most people are going to need. That's as deep as they need to go in terms of like the metrics.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's just utilizing intention, making sure you're not doing something silly, things like that. So yeah, it's funny.
Now, we're going to talk about the stigma around cannabis and why that truly exists. I've got a course you probably don't know about. It's called The Healing Herb.
You told me about it. Yeah, Jason mentioned it too.
Phil Dallaire and I put it together, and it goes into the history of marijuana and a lot of the things I suspect that you're going to share. But in a nutshell, the hemp industry has the ability to replace a lot of industries, such as the logging industry, because we can build houses out of hemp.
Oh, yeah.
We can build rope out of hemp. We can make clothes out of hemp. We can make shoes out of hemp. We can make industrial stuff. I mean, like hemp is a very diverse, and not to mention the fact that there's countless medicines you can make, which we're now knowing with all the CBDs and terpene, everything you've been talking about and do talk about. But I remember I've got a book in my library written by Mayor Giuliano from New York. And I think he was mayor of New York for a long time, but I can't remember when it was. It was maybe late 50s, early 60s or something that this book came about. But the government was pressuring him to make marijuana illegal because it wasn't illegal at that time. At that time, coffee houses were real popular. Alcohol's always been popular. And there was a lot of money coming into New York through the marijuana trade, and it hadn't been made illegal yet. And so when the federal government started pressuring him to make it illegal, he had already too much firsthand experience of the benefits of it, from healing issues to helping people women with menstrual cycle problems, which marijuana is known to be very good for, and a long, long list. So he actually did research. The book's probably 350 pages long. It's a good-sized book. And one of the things that he did was very interesting because the federal government was trying to tell him that it would make people stupid.
Yeah.
And he went into universities, and his researchers interviewed a lot of people. And then what they did is they looked at the grades of alcohol consumers and marijuana consumers, and they found that across the board, the college students that were smoking marijuana but not using alcohol had the highest grades, and the alcohol users had the lowest grades, which is the opposite of what the federal government was trying to tell him. And so he produced this thing. The book was actually called, I think, the Giuliano Report on marijuana, and he gave it to the federal government, but they shut him down anyhow. Yeah. They basically ultimatum him, we'll remove you as governor if you do not change
your tune,
make it illegal.
Yeah.
But it was years ago that I read the book, and it was loaded with great information about the healing benefits, psychological, physical, physiological health. And you could see why he was trying to protect the industry. But other than the fact that the hemp industry is a threat to other industries, are there other things? I mean, I know the medical industry, they want to own all that stuff. They don't want you to get access to it.
100%. I think, the main reason cannabis is illegal is exactly what you're talking about. To go back a little farther in history, in the original Jamestown colonies, it was required by law that every citizen there cultivate hemp because it was so useful. The original Declaration of Independence is written on hemp paper. So it's interesting for a lot of people because me growing up, when I, went through DARE class and these kind of things, I just figured, oh man, cannabis has always been this way. But it's really only been the last about 100 years now, 90 to 100 years, that it's been so stigmatized. And how this all started is before the late 1930s, about 80% of all medications on the market had cannabis in them. And so it was extremely common for doctors to understand cannabis, to give it out, to help people, like a lot of the things you mentioned, menstrual cramping, depression, anxiety, a lot of these things that we're now rediscovering it's really good for. But what happened was it was the union of three guys, William Randolph Hearst, who owned one of the biggest journalism empires at that time, along with Andrew Mellon, who also was in that same camp, and then a guy named Harry Anslinger, who went on to become the first head of the DEA. And so they got together and basically were like, if hemp keeps doing what it's going to do, it's going to overwhelm all of our industries. They had nylon, cotton, different textile industries. Also, the ability for hemp to be used as fuel. And you mentioned also building houses. Not to mention the fact that these houses built with hemp are fireproof. So at a lot of the expos you'll see today with hemp, they'll take a block of what's called hempcrete, right? They call it into like a concrete type material. And they'll put a torch this close to it, right there. And they'll leave it on the entire expo and it will never light on fire. So imagine, right, with like the fires in California, if everyone who just lost their house rebuilt with hempcrete, what that would be.
Yeah.
So essentially what happened is these three guys got together.
It'd be a big problem for the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, 100% of smart cities. Yeah, exactly. And so these three guys got together and were like, okay, how do we create essentially a smear campaign? I'm not sure, I wasn't in the room, so I don't know what words they use, but how do we create a propaganda around this plant? So at this time, think about the mainstream media's role today. Even though we have the internet and we have alternative sources of information, we know how much the mainstream media just completely annihilates people's worldview about things. Well, imagine in the late 30s where one guy controlled all the different newspapers. So if one guy had a mission, it would end up in every single newspaper said different ways.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened. And they started this whole Reefer Madness, right? That original movie that if you watch these days is actually kind of a comedy, but it wasn't back then. People were terrified.
They did the same thing with LSD too.
Yeah, exactly. While they were using it also in MK Ultra, you know?
And doing tons of research on showing a wide variety of benefits.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And, you know, it's interesting because what happened was they started smearing cannabis into this whole like, oh, it's like all these other dangerous things. And it's actually even more dangerous. They literally said someone could grow enough in a window box to make their entire town go insane.
Yeah.
And they also said if you smoke a quarter of a joint, you'll run down the street with a hatchet, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I've seen, I was watching a documentary and it showed some of the old TV commercials and it showed like someone smoking a joint, then getting a gun and shooting their wife and just like really fucking dumb stuff. But you know, what's even more of a problem than that is people are so fucking gullible. They believe that shit, right? And COVID was a perfect example of how we still have a serious case of gullibility. Like really dangerous. And then if you listen to podcast interviews with Robert Epstein, like one that's out on Danny Jones, and you see how Google and YouTube and some of these large corporations, Facebook, are completely fucking with people's minds and every other damn thing. You know, to me, that's one of the most serious issues in the world, bar none, is teaching people how to be selective. And now with AI, it's crazy. I just watched a clip the other day. This woman shared, and she used AI. I don't know if you've seen it, but she is showing what you can do with AI. And she starts off saying, oh, let me talk to you a little bit about what AI can do. And then all of a sudden she morphs into somebody else. And she says, all the people in this video are me. And it looks exactly like a video someone shot. Like you can't
fakes.
Yeah. And so she's like 3 or 4 different people. And then she finishes the video by saying, now you've watched this whole video, but you probably haven't asked the most important question. Is it me that you're talking to right now? Or is it another, AI impersonation of me? And it was very, very well done. And so, it's just like our psyches are being hijacked on many, many levels.
24/7.
And people, like that is an area like we really need. And I'm really grateful that Robert Epstein has now developed a very advanced computer system to monitor Google. And he's shown the United States Senate in 2 meetings what's really going on. Unfortunately, as he showed, many of the people in there are already bought and paid for by Google. Hillary Clinton's chief campaign donator was Google, and on it goes. And the podcast is very good. I'm listening to a previous one from 2024 with some guy from Norway, which is also very good. And I've saw the testimonial that he did. But the point I'm bringing up, aside from not trying to repeat the podcast with Robert Epstein, is just that, and this is going to go right into our next conversation about research, is people have to get a lot more disciplined in researching the research.
Yes.
And before
the
you
money.
believe in anything that you're seeing on any version of social media, you got to ask yourself, is it really true? And I've even been tricked. I remember I shared a post during COVID with Ari Hanovar, who wrote a great book of Rumi, card deck and on Rumi's, poetry. She got really upset at me. She sent me back a nasty, message going, "Don't you know that's fake? What are you doing sending out fake news? Blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I'm a fucking busy guy.
Yeah.
And I'm just sharing. I'm not trying to make decisions for people. I just, it seemed legitimate to me, and it wasn't by any means outlandish.
Yeah.
But like, we all don't always have time. I think someone needs to create a software application because, they can tell whether a photo's been manipulated. I mean, there's got to be the technology that if someone could come up with an app that gives you sort of an authentication scale, this is probably 50% likely to be fake or 90% or 100% fake, so that we could actually start being more conscious about what we repeat as facts to other people.
Definitely. I mean, what's funny about that is someone listening to this who maybe is interested in creating apps, the best name for that is called the bullshit detector.
Yes.
You could literally nickname it the bullshit detector.
Or to be more politically correct, the BS detector.
Yeah, the BS detector. Exactly.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't let bullshit on the App Store, but
you call it brain search.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because, after that all happened and they started the smear campaign, a lot of doctors woke up in the morning after they made this illegal, because they did it overnight as well.
Yeah.
They went to, I forget if it was Congress or whoever they went to, but they essentially said that, and this is going to be crazy, what I'm about to say, this is not my words, you can go look it up, but they were essentially saying that Mexican men were coming over the border and raping white women with this new medicine never seen before, this new drug never seen before called marijuana. Oh, yeah. And because a lot of doctors knew it as cannabis, they didn't really know that it was the same plant. So they make it illegal, and then the doctors wake up to kind of like, wait, you made what illegal? You're saying that does what? And what happened was, in return, they kind of said, well, hey, it's okay. We'll give out tax stamps. So if you want to have cannabis, just bring all your cannabis to the tax office. We'll kind of figure out how much you have, and we'll give you these tax stamps. Sounds great in theory.
Is that like some kind of cash return on it?
Yeah, some kind of like, hey, you got to pay a certain tax to be able to work with this, drug or something like that.
Okay.
And basically, it sounded great in theory. So
another
all these,
mafia deal.
Well, exactly, because what happened was these people went there with their cannabis to the office, and they all got arrested.
Oh God!
And they never once gave the tax stamps out. So it was just a complete ploy to get people more. I mean, just to put them in jail, to do all these ridiculous things. Yeah, exactly. And so then what happens is, through MK Ultra and everything, they start forming this narrative around cannabis, right? One narrative is you should never do it, it'll rot your brain. But they also knew some people were still going to do it, right? Some people that are rebels and things like that. So what do? They start putting out in media things like Cheech and Chong, Pineapple Express, right? This depiction of cannabis as this stupid, dumb drug that only burnouts use. Mm-hmm. And so they start morphing the programming that people get around cannabis. And this is why I rehab so many people now out of this, because they've never learned, they have no context for the fact that cannabis is more, because they've wiped the history clean. I mean, Chris Bennett has tracked cannabis as an intoxicant, spiritual aid, and ally back over 10,000 years. Yeah. So at the end of the day, this continues to move forward. And one of the things that I know I wanted to talk to you about, and one of the things that I get hit up with often, is are these mainstream studies that are being done from very prestigious organizations, Stanford, Harvard, all these different organizations that are saying that cannabis is bad for your heart, or cannabis impacts frontal lobe development, or insert silly experiment.
You mean the same organizations that told us we should all get vaccinated with the COVID vaccine?
And then told us that it was the people not getting it that made us have to get a second one,
right? Because
it wasn't working well enough. Yeah. And so we needed to get a third and a fourth one. Yeah. And then it was the people that didn't get it that messed it all up. Same organization.
Yeah. Yes. Mental masturbators.
Oh my God, it was crazy. And so basically, there's this guy, Peter Grinspoon. His dad was Lester Grinspoon, wrote Marijuana Rediscovered in 1971. Amazing book. If you've never read it, check it out. He was best friends with Carl Sagan. Oh. So, I mean, they were... Lester was a Harvard MD, so is his son, Peter. And very similar to the gentleman you were talking about, the mayor, Giuliano, I think. Yeah, Giuliano. He had seen too much. He had tried cannabis a bunch, and he knew it wasn't what they were putting out. So he risked his entire career to put this book out. And then after he passed away, I got to meet him once in person, actually. Peter released a book a couple of years ago called Seeing Through the Smoke. And so basically, this is a Harvard MD, and he goes into all these studies. And he starts talking about, do you understand that when someone wants to get federal funding for research on cannabis in this country, they have to be looking for a detrimental effect?
Oh, yeah.
So you think that doesn't bias the research a little bit?
Of course it does. The whole intention starts off on the wrong foot.
Exactly. And if they find something positive, they get their funding pulled from them. So what I have for your listeners, and I know your listeners are amazing, they're very open-minded and very discerning, is go read books like this and go see for yourself. Go actually see the evidence of how cannabis, which again has been extremely popular in parts of the world still to this day, like Rastafarian culture, people are smoking it very early on. I'm not recommending that, but I'm just saying, like, if it was that dangerous, we would have seen in that, they wouldn't be around anymore, put it that way. And at the end of the day,
Bob Marley.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And what did he do? He changed the entire world,
Yeah.
because he was really connecting with what I feel the spirit of cannabis is, which is that even when he was rich, he wanted to be around his family. He didn't care where he lived. He didn't care about material possessions.
Yeah.
He just wanted to play soccer. And so again, this is why all the research coming out is going to look negative, because the powers that shouldn't be don't want you to know there's positives there. One other thing that's very interesting is that the U.S. government classifies cannabis as a Schedule I medicine, no medicinal value. Still to this day, it's classified as Schedule I, even with all the medical and everything
ridiculous.
going on. Isn't it insane?
That's right up there with morphine.
Exactly.
And heroin.
Exactly. And the same government owns a patent on cannabis as a neuroprotectant. So essentially they're saying cannabis has no medical value except the medical value that was so strong we had to take out a patent to protect it. The real reason cannabis isn't legal yet is because they haven't found a way to outlaw the natural and monopolize on the synthetic, because every time they try to do it, it doesn't work as well as the natural, because they're trying to play God. And like Dr. Jack Kruse says, does nature make mistakes?
No.
I don't believe so.
No.
I believe nature is perfectly imperfect, just the way it is.
Well, if nature made a mistake, it's the people that create the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
But, that's not nature's fault. That's what happens when you keep rebreeding people on junk food.
Yeah.
And, are brainwashed into ideologies that are not healthy for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I often wonder, like, what would it be like to be one of Bill Gates' children?
God.
Like what? I remember seeing an interview with George Soros' son, and he was just so proud of how he was going to supersede his father's accomplishments. Like, your father's one of the most dangerous criminals on the planet.
Yeah.
And here you are proud to go out and throw elections and destroy governments and obliterate people's lives. It's just unfreaking believable. But, from a spiritual perspective, the devil's job is to stir the pot, to give us a reason to grow deeper into ourselves and into, understanding what it is that we're really here to give each other in life. And unfortunately, if it was nothing but, bliss and love all the time, we'd all start creating shit to have fun because we would get too bored with the fun. So we would just create our own devils. So,
I mean, it's like the age-old saying of would Luke Skywalker have become Luke Skywalker without his nemesis, Darth Vader? You know?
Well, exactly. And since you brought that up, right when the lockdown started, I got a call from J.P. Sears just to catch up, and he was just asking me what I thought was going on, and we were swapping notes. And I said, well, how do you feel about all this? He said, well, every Luke Skywalker needs a Darth Vader, and now we've got ours. So,
The only difference is ours don't breathe out of masks with that cool sound. They just eat crickets under a heat lamp, because they're reptiles.
Yeah, genetically modified crickets. Yeah, well, it's been a great ride once again. And I'm grateful that you've done all this research and that you have put together programs to help people understand cannabis, use it intelligently. Coupling it with breathing is great. That's you can do a lot with breathing alone. But when you couple it with cannabis, I think you can get some really nice overlapping synergistic effects.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's a great, me doing rounds of boxing, there's breathing and marijuana together. Or triathlon training, there's breathing and marijuana together.
Yeah.
But you've got some new courses.
Yeah.
And so why don't you outline what your offer is now for the listeners? Because I suspect there's a lot of people that would, that want to know more about cannabis and how to use it and how to use it for various healing properties. So it's hard to find people that have really good information that know what they're talking about. It's like anything. There's a million courses on a lot of shit, but it's like new age spirituality. Here, just do this one thing and you'll be an angel and you'll walk on water like Jesus.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you feel weak? Just say you're courageous. Fixed.
Yeah.
Done,
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad, man. This has been an amazing podcast. Anytime I get to hang out with you is an amazing day in my book. So thank you for everything, man, as always. And yeah, for people that want to go deeper, I have two main things that I do. My ultimate number one thing is Coach with Cannabis. And that is, like I said before, my 6-month certification. And we're actually running a great deal right now where when you hop into that in the next round, you get all of my courses included. So you get the Clarity with Cannabis course to break any addictive or dependent habits with cannabis. You get Connect with Cannabis, my original program to help you unlock the psychedelic effects of cannabis. You get the Expand with Cannabis course, which is all about learning how to heal trauma and resolute trauma through cannabis. And you also get Grow with Cannabis, which I didn't have the last time I came on here, which is everything from A to Z, everything I've learned over the last 18 years of cultivating on how to cultivate ceremonial grade cannabis, which is a new grade that I'm creating because we need some differentiating factors. It's clear that just because it has a high amount of THC or it looks pretty or it has a funny name, that doesn't really actually speak to the quality of the medicine at all. So ceremonial grade is what I'm putting on the map of it's been grown with intention. It's also grown by someone who's aware of their own emotions and aware of what they're interjecting that medicine with. And so you're going to get all those courses included in that certification. So our next round is going to be happening in late August, early September. The waitlist is now live as of this podcast. So I'll have the link that I give Penny after this to put in the show notes. And then the other thing I do for someone who wants to just come out there like, hey, I don't know if I want to be a cannabis coach or actually guide people in these experiences, but I want to be guided. That's Breathe with Cannabis. And this is an incredible, I really think it's a revolutionary experience because you can do them through Zoom. We've been doing them for almost 3 years now. We've had thousands upon thousands of people come out. I actually did a private for Tim Welch and Sugar Sean a couple of years ago. They loved it.
That's great.
Thank you for that connection too. It was so great meeting them. And it's a knockout experience. 2.5 hours, cannabis and breath work. We have a lot of fun. And this isn't breath work where I'm going to be counting, okay, guys, in 1, 2, 3, 4. No diss on that. But my buddy Chris, who I do this with, he makes all of these breathwork tracks from scratch with this savant musician, his friend Johnny. And they have solfeggio frequencies, certain frequencies in there that are tuned to chakras, binaural beats, and they have the breath sounds embedded into the tracks. So by the time we do the integrated family systems work with cannabis and we kind of get through the entire cannabis portion, you lay down, you put an eye mask on, and you get guided on a 45-minute journey, 4 rounds, sonic breathing. And then after that, we all come back and share. And so we have a community around that. We also have an 8-week program called Limitless, which was insane the last time we ran it. We had a woman who, I meant to bring this up earlier, but the first ceremony, right, which is rewiring the mind, clearing the vessel. Week 1, she came into our Telegram group and was like, guys, I just want to let you know, I learned more about myself in 2.5 hours yesterday than I did in 20 years of therapy, healing retreats, and all that stuff. And this isn't to diss therapy or anything. It's great. But at the end of the day, what I was talking about earlier, there's a way you can quantum leap that, but you have to understand how to work with these. And so those are the 2 main things that I'm doing. I'll make sure Penny has the links. But regardless, if you're looking for a knockout experience, come to Breathe with Cannabis. If you're really motivated to get into this work, come to Coach with Cannabis. It'll change your life.
Awesome. And so if there's any discount codes or anything like that, we can put them in the show notes.
Heck yes. Yeah. So for both programs, we'll have the same discount code, Chek10. We'll give you 10% off your purchase. And so for anyone listening who wants to come check these out, please use the code, come grab your discount and come enjoy.
And remember that CHEK 10, not CHECK.
Yes.
Really great. It's great to see your own evolution and your own progressive development in, not only in your work with cannabis, but your own explorations. Like since we last talked, you've got Breathe with Cannabis. I think mixing these two and taking people on these guided journeys teaches them how to do this for themselves in effective ways and coupling, the right frequencies and music together. I mean, these are things that all have their own nuances of how they can support the system, but it takes a fair bit of work to do the research to put these things together in ways that are, really synergistic with each other. So I think that's a great offering for people, is to try that. So thanks again.
Thank you, man.
Good to see you.
You too. And I just real quick, I gotta give you credit. You've been a huge inspiration to me getting into all this stuff.
Cool.
I mean, not only connecting me to so many amazing souls and just being so gracious. So I really gotta, say hats off to you, man. Thank you for being such an inspiration. And not just me, but countless others as well. It really changed my life.
The Chek community is full of really tapped in, intelligent people. It takes quite a lot to become a real fully trained Chek professional. You got to really have a head on you and a heart on you and be really willing to do a lot of deep study and practice and grow. So fortunately, the Chek community is really, when the day comes that I leave the earth, I'll feel gratified that I've helped create a significant number of well-grounded, intelligent people to help navigate the quagmire that the world is giving us right now. But I'm grateful that I've been able to help connect you with some people that are, supportive to you. And
some of my best friends these days.
Yeah, I run into people all the time that tell me they met you and how much they love you and how much they love what you grow. And I'm like, me too.
So thank you.
Yeah, so thank you to all of you guys for enjoying this beautiful dialogue with Ryan today. Hope you learned a lot. Thank you to my sponsors for your amazing products, for all the love you give the organic, biodynamic, and free-range farmers. And thanks to all of you for taking good care of yourself and your family and buying from the sponsors. You support yourself, you support the companies that are doing good things for the planet, and you support the farmers that are doing good things for the earth, and you support the podcast, and that's the circle of love right there. And I will look forward to having something awesome for you. And if you haven't checked out Spirit Gym yet, if you want a really amazing community of people to really grow deep into your center and learn how to navigate your life and develop your own spiritual philosophy that you feel good about, go to myspiritgym.com and check it out. Lots of love. Thanks again, Ryan. Aho.
Aho.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Ryan Sprague. If you'd like to experience more of what Ryan has to offer, you can apply for the next round of Coach with Cannabis and use the code CHEK10 at checkout to save 10%. Go to highlyoptimized.com for more information. You can view the upcoming Breathe with Cannabis experiences and also get 10% off with the code CHEK10. Visit breathewithcannabis.com to check the dates. You can follow Ryan on Instagram at @TheRealRyanSprague and at highly.optimized, and watch more on his YouTube channel at The Real Ryan Sprague. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. There are 3 different levels of membership to fit your budget and lifestyle. You can participate in live Q&A sessions with podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community, where you can chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study the comprehensive Master Key online program. Explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.